got a note up here that says, do not touch them. Do not touch. Already violated.
Mayor Hearn,
Yes.
just so you know, the system will be permanently fixed before the meeting on the 22nd.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and call ourselves to order. We're about 2 minutes late. And I'd like to thank all of you for being here tonight. And thank you for your participation. And we hope and pray that your comments will be for the overall best of our city. I was at a ribbon cutting this morning over on 10th Street West, and one of the people from the Chamber of Commerce issued a plaque to the business owner there. And he said, I want you to know, sir, as he talked to the business owner, that you're in the best city that you could ever be in. And boy, it felt like my hair was growing. I don't have any. That was really, that tells my story. That's how I feel about Lancaster. So again, thank you so very much for being here, and also thank you for allowing me to serve. This will be my last real meeting for 18 years ago starting. So we appreciate that. Mr. Jeffra is going to be going off same time as I will, and I'm going to ask him to do when we open, ask him to do the proclamation, and I'm going to do the prayer. With that, we'll have a roll call.
Councilmember Agency Director Jeffra.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Cilio.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chairman Vasaki.
Here.
Mayor Chairman Hearns.
Yes.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And at this time, I'm going to ask everyone to stand with us and through the prayer and also through the Pledge of Allegiance. Again, one of the statements I made early on was when I came on, that I'm a preacher of the gospel, and we hope that you would let me serve, and they did, you did. So with that thought, let's pray. Our wonderful and loving Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, and I personally thank you for 18 years ago. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve this community, and through serving this community, serving you. Thank you for my council members. Each of us, with our own thoughts, but somehow we work together for the common good of our city, Lancaster. Now we're here tonight with several things on the agenda, and we just pray, Lord, that you would guide our thoughts and our hearts so that whatever we do would not be in disrespect to any one of us or anybody in this room. Bless us now and keep us. In the precious name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen. Mr. Jeffrey.
If you will join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and you can be seated. We have, I don't know what I'm going to do with Mr. Jeffrey up here. Every time I get ready to speak, he raises up his sign and says, don't touch me. I have several presentations tonight. Is Mrs. Eliopis in the house tonight? Dixie? Not here yet? Okay. The first one has to do with Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Annual Denim Day, 23rd of April. In 1999, an Italian Supreme Court decision overturned a rape conviction because of the victim wore jeans. The justice stated that the victim must have helped her attacker to remove a gene from which they inferred consent. Now, people all over the country was outraged with this and has come to a conclusion that what they want to do is to keep it onto the minds of the people that by wearing genes, particularly on the 23rd of April, and for whatever that means, that's my birthday, so I won't forget it. So with that, I don't know if there's nobody here to receive that, so I'm just going to hold to it here on the desk. Oh, last part of that says, we strongly support the effort of peace over violence to educate citizens in our community and to encourage everyone to wear their denims on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2008. The next one has to do with running rampant disease, and that's diabetes. March 25th, 2008, 20th Annual American Diabetes Alert Day, a one-day call to action to encourage people to find out if they are at risk for diabetes. And listen to this, 1 in 5 Americans, 1 in every 5 is at risk for diabetes. So get your check. And diabetes can cause a whole bunch of problems. I had to, let me put a little emphasis on that because I've been exposed to it. Had a sister-in-law who had diabetes, let it get out of control, and they took her out of here. A foot, a leg, the rest of the leg, an arm. It's an ugly scene. So we urge everybody to get your check because diabetes is completely ugly. The ADA encourages people to take the diabetes risk test, and if they score high, see their health care provider. So I want to urge you tonight to make sure you get your diabetes checked. 1 in every 5. That's pretty good. Okay, Mrs. Eliopis. Not here. Okay.
She is.
Oh, she is here. Okay.
Just walked in.
Yes, all right. And I'm just going to check, see if you're here. We have a couple of other presentations, and then we'll come back and make a presentation to you. You can take the front seat there if you like. There you go. Okay, the next one is Mr. Andy Fasaki and
you.
and me. All right, I'm ready.
This is one of the ones I get to do, and I always enjoy doing these. But here at the City Council, we've always been proud to recognize high school athletes that have accomplished incredible tasks through sports in our community. And in the past, we've recognized individuals for cross country and track, and qualifying for the state finals. And when one of the schools that's in the city of Lancaster wins a championship, we recognize them. Oh, come on. Tonight, what I'd like to do is call up here the Desert Christian Girls Soccer Team, Division 6 CIF champions. Come on up. Are the coaches here too? They need to come up. Oh, okay, there she is. Well, you look like one of them. Doesn't she? Yes. Well, she's a great coach too, and I know that for a fact. I had the opportunity to coach track with her. Was it last year? 2 years ago. Okay. This girls' team this year went 26 wins, no losses, and 1 tie. That is absolutely incredible. Last year we recognized them for a CIF co-championship. Last year they tied Ontario Christian High School, right? And it was a co-championship. Didn't come out a co-champion this year, though, did we? This year they won the CIF championship. I think, what was the final score of that game? 5 to what? That's what I thought. There weren't too many goals scored against them all year. How many? 8, and 26 wins, no losses, 1 tie. That's pretty impressive. But I understand that the girls' team at the school has not lost a game in 45 consecutive games. Wow. And so, hey, give them a hand. That's a great accomplishment. And one of the other amazing things about it is the school has a student population of about 540, somewhere around there. Well, how many? 430. That's all? 430? Well, then why are we in Division 4 in cross country? But either way, they have either way, the student population's 430. They played a lot of Division 1 schools in competition during the regular season. I don't need to tell you the results because I already told you what their record was. So that's pretty impressive. So we're going to recognize you. We have a certificate here that is signed by Mayor Hearns and myself, and we're going to present it to each one of you. So if you could, I know who most of you are, but I don't know who all of you are. I know Robin Estrada. It'll take a while.
I usually do the whole group.
Okay.
I'll do the whole group.
Robin, thank you.
Jade Garcia. Yeah, I believe both of them are like All Valley honors. Am I right? Jade was the MVP for the Desert Mountain League, right? Or for the entire Antelope Valley? Congratulations. Alyssa Atkins. Hi, Alyssa. Caitlin Aikenhead.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Nicole Couch.
Thank you.
Amanda Cortez. Not here. Kristen Richards. Emily Poulter. I saw her. Julia Celebron. Hannah Parcel. I'll say her name anyhow. Christina Hulse? Hulse. It's Kylie Hall. I know Kylie. She's also a great distance runner. Michelle Beiswinger? Okay. Maya Triplett? Uh-oh. Carly Prelewis? What is it?
Prelowitz.
Amy Pearson. Kara Eskenazi. Is it Shea? Shay? Shay Richards? Bria Adams. Charlie White. Oh, there she is. Coach Deanne Lewis. Coach Curtis Lewis, and assistant coach Vanessa Garcia. Would you like to say something? It's our honor to recognize you. We'll give you the microphone for a few minutes.
These girls are just awesome, and they just really stepped up. I just would want to honor the seniors because it really took a team effort this year. I started working full-time, and my husband came on and was helping me out. But it really took the seniors' leadership and the girls just following their example and their desire to just honor the Lord. And I hope he was really pleased with this season.
Again, thank you all so very much for putting your hearts into this and moving straight ahead. Coach, thank you.
If I can get my two elected officials in the middle of the coach centered between them, and then we'll. I would like half of the girls in the second row in the front, if you don't mind. Take a knee. I like that. I can do that.
Sure, that's fantastic.
Okay. I'm going to try it a couple times so I get all the closed eyes. And once more. Everybody, look this. One more time. Okay, we've got it. Thank you.
Nice going, girls.
All right. We are very honored to have people who are doing it two ways, academically, physically, and in the fear of the Lord. We appreciate that. Okay, I think at this time, Parks and Recreation, make a presentation to us.
Mayor Hearns, members of the City Council, in February of this year, the California Park and Recreation Society recognized the city again for outstanding work with an Award of Excellence for its annual publication, The Outlook. And we have a number of staff that work on that committee. They do a great job every year on this. And I'd like them to come up, if we could. Angela Riley, Recreation Supervisor in the Park and Rec Department. Ann Aldridge, if Ann is still around here, the Communications Manager, and they can talk about the rest of the team that has worked on this and a few remarks that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Good evening, all. The award that I'm going to present today was actually one of 20 distinguished awards from various categories from the Pacific Southwest region of the California Parks, Recreation, and Arts Society. It's a mouthful. I'd like to actually share a quote from the director of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Department. She shared that City of Lancaster is amongst the finest in recreation programming, park and facility design, promotional materials, and park maintenance throughout all of California. And that really says a lot about who we are in the City of Lancaster. Outlook success is attributed to the entire committee, which is comprised of a number of people who really work very hard, quarter to quarter. They're dedicated. Their creativity shines throughout each and every Outlook. And I'd actually like the committee members to join me, if possible, down here presenting the award to Council and Mayor Hearns. And the committee members are made up of Nicole Nutt, who is a Recreation Coordinator, Nicole Allen, who is Communications Specialist, not here today, Patty Garabay, Recreation Supervisor.
I heard your name.
Thank you. We also have Lyle Norton, who is the Director of Park, Recreation, and Arts, Lori Butt, Special Events Manager, myself, and the entire Davis Communications team. So on behalf of all of us, and of course our fearless leader, Ann Aldridge. So on behalf of the entire committee, Mayor Hearns, and Council, we'd like to present you with the 2007 Outlook, Spree Outlook Brochure Award of Excellence.
Hello.
We'll take a photo real quick.
We're going to take a picture, and while they're getting in position here, I want to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm sure I'm speaking for all 5 of us, who say that, yeah, we receive a lot of accolades that we haven't done anything for, other than made sure we had the right staff in place, and that was done by the city managers and those people who were in charge. So I'm very pleased and honored tonight to be able to receive this, and on behalf of the council. How do you want us to stand? Are we already done?
Smile, I'm going to do it again.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say something quickly too. First of all, I want to say that this is really a testament, the award's a testament of council's commitment to excellence and their commitment to the community in its entirety. And I also want to thank the Davis Communications team. We have Kelly here with us. I really want to say that you guys are kind of the glue that holds us all together. The staff is awesome with the design, the color, the creativity, all of that really is shown in each and every edition of the Outlook. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was rather nice of the California Park and Recreation Society to give us an award that is positively clear.
That's great. That's great. Let's see the other one. Be careful with the welcome and thank you for being here tonight. And you're looking really nice. I won't go into reading all of whereas. I'd just like to, you want to no, just put it back there because I'm one-handed here. Okay. Thank you, Ann. I may have already told you this at one time or the other, Dixie, that when I first ran for the city council, people asked me if I'd be partial. And I thought about it a minute, and I said, no and yes. The no part is those people who are out there trying to be special groups. The yes part is people who were here, who cut tumbleweeds, dug in the sand. Not many people here, but still made it happen to the point that we have a beautiful place called Lancaster. And I can understand, Dixie, how you feel many times when you feel like the thing's not exactly like they should be because of the fact of the contribution that you and your whole family have made over the years. She was here when the time came to organize this and call ourselves a city. Dixie was in the middle of that. Many of my elections, Dixie was there for me. And many times we had a chance to just to pray together, which meant a lot to me. And so, Dixie, I could go on and talk about you, but being a Woman of the Year is no surprise to me. So on behalf of the Lancaster City Council, we want to say to you the congratulations, and we commend you on being the Woman of the Year. Dixie.
Thank you so much. I'm humbled and I'm honored. And the greatest honor was to represent the Antelope Valley portion of the Los Angeles County 5th District under the direction of our Michael D. Antonovich, our supervisor, who works so very hard for us. And I feel like Vern Wasson Jr. probably taught me everything I know about community involvement, because for 15 years I shared the privilege of being on the Lancaster Economic Development Corporation, and the passionate desire of Vern and the directors of making that a regional economic development effort. And so in that sense, you've all had a part in this. And it's been my joy when we did incorporate to be part of that, and also when we did the Partners Program, Citizens and Government Working Together in 1992. I believe you got a Helen Putnam Award for that one. And so it's been a joy to just be a part of the community and follow what my husband always believed as a native son of the Antelope Valley. Do the right thing and never forget your roots. And so to all of you that have been a part of that rooting and that branching out and the fruition of that we've only just begun to see, thank you all for giving me that privilege. I would just like to acknowledge the City of Lancaster and the 4 staff people that attended that luncheon at the Biltmore with over 400 and some people. And that would be Marta Golding Brown, Senior Redevelopment Projects Coordinator, Heather Swan, Redevelopment Assistant, and 2 other ladies, Adrienne Rolka, Redevelopment Assistant, and Heather Kennedy, Economic Development. I think we all learned a lot about who we are and where we fit as the last frontier of Los Angeles County and part of the largest district in Los Angeles County. We have a lot to do, and it needs to be right. Thank you.
All right. Everybody see? Okay, as we move along here, item to be removed, Mr. City Manager,
No, sir.
and public business from the floor on agendized item. Presume we have some cards.
We have 1 card for CC 13 to be pulled for separate action and discussion.
CC 13.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's it. Okay, gentlemen, we are at the point of the agency action.
Move adoption.
Second. Please cast your ballot. Five that is unanimous and so ordered. The city council action items, with the exception of 13. Any others?
Move adoption.
Second.
All items except 13 has been approved. Whoever it is on CC 13, who's speaking to that?
Yes, we have 1 speaker, Gary Burgess.
Okay.
My name is Gary Burgess, and I'm a resident of Lancaster. Good evening, Mayor Hearns, Vice Mayor Vasaki, and council members. I'd like to bring to your attention and address CC 13 tonight. I have studied the engineering drawings for this project number 08015, and it appears to me that the City of Lancaster is failing to take the proper steps in addressing our predicted water shortage. The project consists of 32,900 square feet of decomposed granite, 136 trees, 1,270 bushes, 5-gallon size, 2,042 ground cover plants of the 2-gallon size, and 832 ground cover plants of the 1-gallon size. In keeping with the landscaping of the surrounding area, and we're talking about the new hotels at the ballpark here, I question why you will approve a contract to install this many plants of the 1- and 2-gallon size that will consume precious water. Nowhere do I see on the engineered drawings the use of any rocks, plants native to the Antelope Valley, or the many suggestions for xeriscaping the city suggests for our private residential lots. If we are required to adhere to ordinances in dealing with the upcoming water shortage, then why shouldn't you, as our leaders, set the standards for the rest of us to follow. Wouldn't this be a really good starting point to address xeriscaping as new landscaping is being installed? Will the city be required to spend untold dollars a few years down the road to redo projects such as this when we are faced with the predicted dilemma of water shortage? We are faced with unique circumstances here in the Antelope Valley, and we should recognize these circumstances and deal with the facts that they present. I will agree that the plants listed on the drawings are of a drought-resistant variety. In reference to saving water, it is my belief that landscaping with stone and a minimum amount of foliage is the best route to follow while landscaping new projects in Lancaster. I fully understand that the new hotels being built want to place their best foot forward on opening day with a great appearance. As I stand here tonight, I would like to say, let them partner with the City of Lancaster to address this issue. Tonight, I ask that you do not award this contract as drawn. I'd like for you to revisit this issue with John Preston Andrews of RBF Consulting in Irvine, California, and make changes accordingly. It's a proven fact that rocks use less water than plants. Incorporate them into our landscape to save water. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Staff wish to comment on that at all?
Randy Williams.
While he's coming to the mic, I might just mention the fact that there's nobody more sensitive to water use and conservation of water than the man who is about to speak.
I think, Mr. Mayor, that I was going to say that exact same thing in my opening remarks. I certainly agree with everything that Mr. Burgess said about the landscaping around the Mall Loop Road, as it's called. All I can say in explanation to him is that I think it was 2 years or so ago when the city or agency entered into a developer's agreement with the hotels and committed at that time to this installation. Certainly, I think if we were better prepared 2 years ago, as we are now, about these various water issues, that we might have been able to convince them to go a different route. There was a great deal of debate that took place with them nonetheless to get to the point where we are. And we did manage to, as Mr. Burgess pointed out, include mostly drought-tolerant plants, water-saving plants in the landscaping scheme. We, that having been said, believe that we are obligated under the terms of the agreement that was entered into for that particular development to go forward with this contract, and that is the city's staff's recommendation at this point in time. I would close by just saying that certainly following Mr. Burgess's lead, we need to do a much better job on every project that comes in and every landscaping improvement that's done in the city in the future. And we are working furiously to try to make all of the necessary guidelines to be put in place to make that happen. If there are questions, let me see if I can answer them. Perhaps Mr. Lawson has some other comments that he would like to add.
Question, gentlemen?
I got a question.
Okay.
Randy, based on the current water situation and...
I beg your pardon, sir, I didn't hear you.
Based on the current water situation, the things that are happening right now, is it possible to renegotiate?
I would have to defer that question to Mr. McEwen.
I think it's really a timing issue, and I think the answer is probably no. It's not at this point possible to renegotiate that.
No other question? We're ready to make our decision? Okay. Thank you. I really had an opportunity the last 2 weeks ago to ride together with Mr. Williams, and we went everywhere looking at forest, grass, and all that kind of stuff. Artificial turf. In fact, I'm looking at doing it in my front yard. So it's really a good thing. Okay, I'm at this point want to call this to order, and I'll make a motion that we adopt item 13.
Second.
So cast your vote, and I also want to thank Mr. Burgess for being watchful and helping us with this. Whoop.
4-1.
Okay. 4-1, and it is approved. We're going to move on to public hearing number 1. And I'm going to declare the public hearing open, and we'll take staff report on this.
Mayor Hearns and council members, as you know, periodically we come before you recommending annexations into special benefit assessment districts. This evening for public hearing number 1, we have 3 such annexations proposed. These represent 2 single-family residential properties and 1 commercial property. In each case, the property owners have identified to the city that they will be making improvements as conditioned by the city to the drainage improvement system, and they have requested that the city assume responsibility for maintenance of those systems. That, of course, comes on condition of the properties being annexed in such that assessments can be collected each year for the purpose of paying for those improvements. Staff recommends to the council, since everything is in order as far as submissions by the, or submittals by the property owners, that Resolution 08-29 be adopted in this case, and we can then move forward with these annexations to the Drainage Maintenance District. If you have questions, certainly I'll be happy to try to answer them.
I actually have a question for the city attorney on this one. I don't think there's a problem, but just in case. Last thing I need is somebody accusing me of it. I get a stipend as a coach for one of the schools that's on here. Does that make any difference as to whether I can vote on it? No, I'll sit it out.
Yeah, I think the better choice would be to sit it out, though from stipend from a public entity shouldn't disqualify you.
I'll sit it out.
But I think for right now, until we get into it more deeply.
Let the record show then that Mr. Psaki will withdraw from voting on this particular item. Any other questions or changes? Okay. If City Clerk, do you have anything on that?
No communications and no speaker cards.
Okay. If there's no opposition, we'll close the public hearing and council discussion.
Move we adopt public hearing number 1.
Second. Oops. Unanimous and so ordered with 1 abstention. And that will take us to public hearing number 2. You can come back in, Mr. Starkey.
I think they have the same scenario.
Do you? Are you trying to get a chance to go home early or something?
You betcha.
The same school property is included in this action.
Okay. Public hearing is declared to be open. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As in the last action, when you were voting to annex properties into the Drainage Maintenance District, 2 of those same properties are proposed this evening to be annexed into the Lighting Maintenance District. One of those is the residential property. The other one, classed as a commercial property, is the school concerned to Mr. Vasaki. In each case, the property owners have signed a petition to be annexed into the district and have paid the necessary fees to move forward with that annexation. Staff recommends, therefore, the adoption of Resolution 08-30, and we will make those annexations happen.
Okay. Any questions, gentlemen? If not, City Clerk.
No communications and no speaker cards.
Okay, with no objection, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll move forward for discussion and action on the part of the council.
Move adoption resolution number 08-30.
Second. Please cast your ballot. Again, unanimous with 1 abstention.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I might, just to make the record very clear about Mr. Vasaki's potential conflict, it was because he receives a stipend from Desert Christian Schools, which is technically not a public entity, it's a private entity.
Okay.
And therefore, I think the disqualification was probably proper in this case, but it was because of that stipend that he disqualified himself. So I just want the record to reflect that clearly.
We appreciate that, but I went off the previous record. That's why I didn't go back through it again.
No, that's appropriate. I just wanted, for
That's good.
purposes of the record, to make it clear which party we were talking about.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay. Have we voted? Did I vote? Did we vote already? Yeah, we did, didn't we? Okay, we did. So that will take us to the last public hearing number 3. We declare that public hearing open and staff report.
Good evening, Mayor Hearns and members of the City Council. The purpose of this public hearing is for consideration of amendment of the city's current fee schedules. The city provides various services for which it is appropriate to charge a fee to the beneficiary of that service. When the fees are adopted, they are tied to the cost of providing that service. While it's not cost-effective for the city to undertake a comprehensive cost of services study to amend the fees annually, it is prudent to adjust the fees by an index in order for the fees to keep pace with increasing costs. For the fees per service, the index used is the Consumer Price Index, which for 2007, the average CPI increase was 3.3% for Los Angeles. While a comprehensive study was not completed, we do know that the cost of providing services has increased. We've all experienced increases in our utilities and gas prices and just various supplies and services. We're confident that the costs of providing the services have increased beyond the 3.3% that we're recommending for the adjustment. In addition to the CPI adjustment, there are also 3 new fees being proposed. These include a fee for large and extra-large print copies and a charge for GIS or graphical information service mapping services. Development impact fees are established to provide the funds necessary to respond to the impacts of new developments on the city's infrastructure. These include streets, traffic signals, drainage infrastructure, and parks. Similar to service fees, it's prudent for the city to make annual adjustments in its impact fees in an attempt to keep fees in line with construction costs. These fees are adjusted by the Construction Cost Index. In 2007, there was no adjustment in the development impact fees due to the anticipation of a comprehensive update of the entire development impact fee structure. This effort has been delayed, so staff is recommending a catch-up adjustment wherein we adjust the fees for the 2006 Construction Cost Index as well as the 2007. The 2006 increase is 3.5%, and 2007 3.9%. Similar to service fees, the city has experienced significant increases in the cost of construction, which we believe is beyond the proposed adjustments that we're recommending. In preparation for the public hearing and to gather feedback from the community, the proposed fee schedules were provided to the Antelope Valley Building Industry Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Greater Antelope Valley Association of Realtors. The BIA did not have objections to the adjustments. However, in our discussions with them, they have asked that the city consider making changes to the timing of when the development impact fees are paid. Staff has agreed to take a look at that possibility and will be bringing back a recommendation later. The Chamber of Commerce and the Association of Realtors have both reviewed the schedules and did not have any objections to the proposals. Based on the increased cost of doing business, it is staff's recommendation that the City Council adopt resolutions 08-31 and 08-32 amending the fee schedules. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Question, Jim?
Great presentation. I had some questions, but you answered all of them, and you knew you were expecting it. I could tell.
Thank you so much.
Good job.
Thank you. City Clerk.
No speaker cards and no communications.
With no objection, we'll close the public hearing, and we will now put it before you for discussion or
Can we move both resolutions at one time?
Yes.
Yes.
Move adoption of resolution number 08-31 and resolution number 08-32.
Second. All right, would you please cast your vote? 5-0. We take us now to new business 1. And at this point, we'll take staff report.
Mr. Mayor, council members, at your last meeting on March 11th, we had before you an item, actually the same item as we have before you this evening. This evening has a bit more explanation to it in our staff report, which I will address for you momentarily. The issue at hand is the acceptance of landscaping improvements to Landscape Maintenance District Number 1 as a result of the annexation number 294 of Tract 47-583, more commonly referred to now as the Westview Estates Tract. This, the council will most likely remember, was the housing development that was under construction by Cahovanian as the developer on the far west side of town, out at about between 87th Street West and 90th Street West at Avenue I on that south side. The action was actually, as said, just to adopt or to accept the improvements that had been constructed by that developer. Those were improvements conditioned again on the developer. They were required to be annexed into the district. That annexation did take place. They did pay their fees. The properties, and they paid the first year assessment for maintenance of that improvements to get it established until such time as the properties were sold. So all of those procedural things have been appropriately completed. There was some question last meeting. I think one of the speakers indicated that there were dead or dying plants. I was surprised to hear that, and certainly was concerned because a similar situation had come up several months before. As a result of that earlier situation, I implemented a new procedure to make sure that all of those annexations, or I should say acceptances, were in fact recently inspected. On that particular occasion, an inspection was performed by one of our landscape maintenance experts in the Public Works Department on March 11th, and that's the very same day as the council meeting. What he found, and what the other person found when I sent them out the next day, was that yes, there appears to be some dead plants, but they are not dead. They are a species that goes dormant during the winter, and they were in fact a dormant species at that particular moment in time. They went so far as to walk through the LMDs, check each one of the plants, snap the stems to make sure that they were still green, and we are convinced that there are no dead plants in that LMD area. We therefore suggest to the council that the acceptance of those improvements be made. Some of the other issues that the council, I'm sure, remember from that discussion had to do with water pressure. And I think that the homeowners were hoping that by not accepting this particular improvement into the landscape maintenance district, it would provide some additional leverage over the developer to make those water pressures more stable, the water supply more stable. That next morning, on the 12th, I had 2 meetings with the head of Waterworks, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And we came to an agreement that they recognize the full responsibility on Waterworks for correcting all of the water pressure and stability issues at that particular site. They have provided to me at my request, I'm not sure, I think it got to the council, an email that was dated the 20th of March that laid out 6 additional improvements to the system that they, Waterworks, are taking on to improve water pressures and water supply in that particular development. This email and some of the other correspondence refers to 22 homes. There actually are 23 homes that are affected by this, and that is something that is well known to us in the city staff. We have just allowed, and perhaps even allowed it in the staff report, to indicate 22 when there are 23. This afternoon, we had another meeting, this one with the 2 attorneys representing the Homeowners Association and one of the homeowners who came to share with us and us being a couple of, one of my staff, myself, and our city attorney, to discuss with them what has been going on and what the city is able to do. We spent considerable time explaining the process of improvements for conditions of imposed upon new developments, and then for the inspection and sign-off on those improvements. We explained at length the responsibility that the city has as it relates to water and fire and some other issues such as trunk sewers and annexation of the sanitation district as being issues specific to those agencies. And when those agencies respond to us before we issue certificates of occupancy, that the systems that they approve the design for have been constructed to that design, we have no alternative but to accept that. And we do not go out, as I explained before, to re-inspect. In this case, we had both, there are letters in your packet from both the fire department and from County Waterworks that demonstrates our specific request back about a year ago of the adequacy of their systems, and both of them signed off on those systems. So we feel very strongly that this is clearly an issue for the county to resolve. We have promised and definitely will do our best to stay involved diligently to pursue the county in getting these changes made quickly, and as I said, establish the necessary stability to the water supply in that area. The property owners today, their representative and their attorney, also asked that the city intervene to establish one more meeting time for the county and the supervisor's office staff to meet with the residents, the homeowners out there. And I have spoken to Mr. Hickling about that, and we'll begin to coordinate the establishment of that meeting time and date first thing in the morning. At this point, I think that we have done everything that we can other than to continue to understand the situation that our residents are suffering out there with some unstable water supply and pressures. We certainly have sympathy for them in that. Sympathy doesn't go very far. We understand that, but we are definitely doing our best and will continue to do our best to apply pressure to get Waterworks to live up to their obligations in this case. They have their head of the Waterworks specifically on 2 separate occasions in the last 2 weeks has acknowledged to me their full and sole responsibility to get these improvements made and the water situation resolved. It's a long staff report. It's been a difficult situation not only for the homeowners but also for us to try to work our way through. One thing I did leave out was we have made a proposal to Waterworks of another option that may be available to them in working with Hovnanian to make some further improvements, such as the completion of a well that was started as a condition of another development, but was then not completed. This proposal would allow that project to go forward quickly, and then that would also create a permanent and stable supply system for that area out there. If there are questions of the council, again, our recommendation is simply just to accept these improvements. We have live, thriving, healthy plants. We expected those improvements out there. They have been done to our full satisfaction. They are ready for us to accept, and we see no value to a leverage of withholding the acceptance of those improvements at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Any question? Thank you, sir. City Clerk.
No speaker cards.
And council discussion and action.
Move to accept the recommendation.
I'd second that. Is unanimous and is so ordered again. Thank you very much. That takes us to new business 2, which is a presentation and just file. Mr. Williams, you back again?
I'm back again, sir. Taking up residency here this evening.
Not a problem. Thank you.
This evening we have a short presentation by our traffic engineer, Michelle Cantrell, who will explain to you a proposal that has been underway for some time by the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Authority. This is a proposal that would establish a new congestion mitigation fee. I won't go into more details. Instead, we'll defer for Michelle to share with you the information. She's going to share the factual information after she has concluded with her presentation. And before you ask questions, I would like to offer a couple of additional comments from the Public Works Director's perspective, and I think that the City Manager may also have a comment or two.
All right.
So, Michelle.
Michelle, thank you.
Just a moment while I set up the...
All right, go right ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Randy introduced, I'm here to present an overview of the draft congestion mitigation fee program that's being proposed by the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, who from here on out I'll just refer to as Metro. Metro has released a draft congestion mitigation fee report to agencies to review and make comment. The intent of the program is to implement a countywide fee that would be applied to all types of new development in order to fund regionally significant projects, transportation-type projects. Why is the fee being explored? The Metro Board of Directors authorized the study of the fee in response to the transportation funding challenges they believe we are currently faced with. They paint a picture in which state and federal transportation funding sources are threatened and uncertain, and that the county and all its jurisdictions must therefore look within itself to grow the funding pie by requiring future development to shoulder its share of the transportation infrastructure and mitigate the impact of growth. They contend that this is not something new, that the adjacent counties have adopted similar programs, such as Riverside, San Bernardino, Orange, and San Diego. And as the agency that's responsible for the implementation of the congestion management program, they believe the fee will help meet the local responsibilities to comply with the congestion management program. What is the congestion management program? Well, California statute requires that a congestion management program be developed and adopted for every county in California, and therefore every city within the county. Lancaster must be in conformance with the CMP in order to receive gas tax allocations and be eligible to receive state and federal transportation funding through the call for projects. Lancaster is currently in conformance with the CMP, and therefore we receive approximately $2.5 million in gas tax revenue, at least for this current fiscal year. The details of the program are that if authorized by Metro, local jurisdictions must adopt the fee through a local ordinance or risk losing the gas tax funds. The fee is applied at one time and would affect all types of new development. The fee funds local transportation improvements that would mitigate the impact of growth on the regional system. Eligible projects would include capacity increasing improvements that would benefit the regional system. These improvements could be to the state highway system, our arterial network, signal synchronization, and bus and rail improvements. Metro will establish a countywide minimum fee, and it will be the same for all jurisdictions, and if desired, local jurisdictions may impose a fee that's higher than the minimum. The mitigation fee program horizon is through the year 2030. This is consistent with our general plan update, and it would mean that we will be looking for projects that will support the growth expected over the next 23 years. This next slide is a hypothetical fee scenario, kind of a what if the fees were in these ranges. Metro has not determined what the fee will be as of yet. And I also have put on there what the city's current traffic impact fees are, however, different from what was adopted tonight. Single-family dwelling units, if they proposed a fee of $200 to $1,600 per trip generation rate, then that would mean each dwelling unit would be responsible for paying fees of approximately $2,000 to $16,000 per unit, given this range. And as you can see, what our current fee was approximately $1,500 per dwelling unit. Given the proposed fee amounts for the single-family dwelling units, the hypothetical total fee revenue for Lancaster over 25 years could range between $51 million to over $411 million, assuming that approximately 260,000 new trips are generated by 2030. Continuing with the details of the program, Metro claims the program is designed to maximize local control. They say that the cities and counties will select the projects, the city will collect the fee at permit issuance, and the city would administer the fee program and manage the fee account. The city would also be responsible for implementing projects or building projects or contributing to regionally significant projects that are built by other local jurisdictions. Metro advocates multi-jurisdictional projects. Cities that have local fee programs may receive a dollar-for-dollar credit for regionally significant projects, and this is to avoid double counting of fees. Cities may award credit to a developer for developer-constructed projects. Some projects are exempt and include low-income housing, high-density residential and mixed use located within a quarter-mile of a fixed rail station, and projects that entered into a development agreement prior to 1989. Staff's reviewed the report, and here are a list of some of our concerns. The fee could significantly increase the cost of new development and discourage economic development. As Lancaster and Palmdale are two of the remaining cities in LA County with a significant amount of vacant and relatively low-cost land, a minimum fee could be set that could significantly increase the cost of new development and potentially discourage development. We are also skeptical that Metro would not redirect available state and federal funds for their own use and would not make them available to our local jurisdiction. Cooperation with adjacent jurisdictions could also prove to be difficult. For instance, if Caltrans does not plan or implement projects in a timely manner, the cost will be much higher, including what our local share would be towards that project. We're also skeptical that local control can be maintained and that we will be able to control the fees that are collected. A few months ago, or actually almost a year ago, we sent a letter to Metro, and the city proposed that they allow the fee to be used for expenditures that would bring or create new jobs in Lancaster, thereby reducing the number of vehicles that travel on State Route 14. Metro staff responded verbally that the state law would have to be modified to allow for this use of fees, and that this proposal is contrary to the expansion of the State Route 14 that's proposed in the North County Combined Highway Corridor Study. So what's next? The city is to submit comments on the report by April 25th. Metro expects that the board will adopt the report by June of 2008. Metro will then begin working with the local jurisdictions to identify projects and confirm growth forecasts, and they anticipate completing this by February of 2009. The board is then expected to adopt the fee program by July of 2009. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
I think you've covered this, and that is the tie between 514 and 138 and all the way over to 15. I assume that's included somewhere in your thinking.
The project list has not been developed yet, but those would be typical facilities that would be included in the program.
And goods movements, and I assume again that's all a part of our thinking in the out years.
Mr. Mayor, perhaps rather than try to answer directly your question, I can just share with you some of my general comments. First of all, Michelle told me a couple of days ago when we were going through her presentation that she thinks this is the first time she's had to make a public presentation since she was in college. She did quite well.
She did very well.
The reason why we're here this evening is because, and I should have brought it over, perhaps
That's okay.
Bob can hand up.
Really, Mr. Williams, really all I was concerned is,
This-
yes, you looked at it or thought about it.
All right.
That's it.
This document and a cover letter to us asks that we provide additional comments to this document by the first week in April, so next week. And we felt that one more time, because we have brought this to the council as an informational item a couple times before, that we should bring it back again and make sure that we were still on course. Michelle shared with you on the previous slide, perhaps I can call it up again. Is that the one? Some of our concerns, and these continue to be our concerns, at least from the staff level, and we wanted to make sure that they were also the council's concerns. If you continue to concur with that, then we will prepare the appropriate response back to the MTA and have the city manager or myself sign out that letter to them. Last time we did have the city manager sign the response that went out. We have established already, and it was acted on by public hearing number 3 today, a traffic impact fee that is collected from developers. We anticipate that what the MTA would be proposing will be perhaps a 5-fold increase or even more over what that fee presently is. And as Michelle appropriately pointed out, even though they say it will be for locally collected and for local projects, we are concerned that what will happen in the end is that we will be short-shrifted in one way or the other.
Absolutely.
By virtue of the fact that, they can come to us and say, well, you have so many $1 million that you've collected in the last 2 years, so just go ahead and fix it yourself, and we will give this money to Burbank or to Hollywood or to somebody else who doesn't have, or they will adopt a traffic impact fee as well, but they won't be collecting any money because they are built out already. So we're concerned about that. We want to make sure it stays in the forefront. Michelle mentioned if we do not, and we do believe that this thing will ultimately get passed, and that's not something that sits well with me, but it's just a reality. I think that the MTA board will adopt it eventually, 2009, and it'll come back to this council for you to adopt it as well. And you will have your hands tied, because if you don't adopt it, they will not give us gas tax money, and we will not be eligible for any kind of road improvement or projects in the future that would be funds from MTA. Again, as stated, we would lose gas tax, and I wanted to just remind the council of what we use the gas tax monies for. We don't get a lot of gas tax money. I think it's about $2.5 million a year. That's what funds our street maintenance. That's the 20 or so maintenance workers who you see out every day filling potholes and correcting utility trench failures and doing tree trimming by contract and street sweeping and sidewalk repairs and curbs and gutter repairs and graffiti removal and weed abatement and illegal dumping cleanup and on and on and on. We are highly dependent upon that money in order to provide the very basic right-of-way maintenance services for the citizens of Lancaster. This has been going on since 2003, and it looks like it's getting to the point of culmination. We want to make sure that our voice is heard. It will be heard if the council concurs with the direction we've proposed, and that's all we're looking for this evening. We're offering this as information and just making sure we're on the right course for you.
I'm fine, thank you. Gentlemen?
Rather than reading the 65-page report they sent us, I'm just going to ask you one question. I'm having difficulty understanding how they came up with their proposed fee amounts. One is they vary from one amount to sometimes 8 times as much in their proposed fee. But their proposed fees are sometimes 10, 20, even 30 times what ours are. How did they come up with these numbers, or do we know that?
Well, that's a good question and one that we haven't got an answer to. Michelle did indicate to you that the next phase will be for them to be working with each of the jurisdictions, Lancaster included, to identify all of those eligible streets or projects or rights-of-way where improvements are expected to be necessary at some date into the future. And then, based upon that list of projects and cost estimates associated with each of those projects, they will determine the overall congestion mitigation fee. So it's the same process that we would be using. In fact, that we do use when we establish our own impact fees. It's just this one is going to be looking at a lot more. We have discussed, Michelle and I, that one thing we need to make absolutely certain of is that every possible eligible street is included. If they're going to force us to collect these funds, or these monies, then we want to make sure that we are getting what we need in order to build everything that we will need to build, and not leave something for us to try to figure out some way of funding it from general fund or some other source. It just doesn't make sense for us to do that. When other communities might be getting every quarter-mile street, we don't want ours to be every half-mile street, for an example.
And the concern about loss of local control, there's that Reagan quote that comes to mind, trust but verify.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
There's that Reagan quote that comes to mind about losing local control, trust but verify.
Yes.
I don't necessarily trust them either.
Okay, any other questions, gentlemen? Oh, sorry.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just a couple things. I worked at the MTA for 3 years, and we should not trust the MTA in this case. And I don't say that to be flippant. This is historically, the MTA has imposed fees and simply taken fees away on the other end. Michelle said she was skeptical. There's no reason to be skeptical. There will be no new net gain. What will happen is our residents will continue to pay Prop A, Prop C, gas tax, which should go to the regional improvements. That's the intent of it. All we will be doing now is our development, and it will hurt economic development, in particular retail and industrial, as you saw there. We will just pay more for the same improvements that our residents are already paying for. This is something we should vigorously oppose. And we will do that. We will send a copy of that to our supervisor. But I agree with Randy. This is going to pass at the MTA board level. And I don't think there's anything we can do to stop it at this point.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Gentlemen, do we need to vote on this? Or can
Just a card. Get a card.
I'll get a card. Okay. Thank you.
We do have one speaker on this, and that is Jason Smith.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, esteemed staff. Thank you, Mark. And Randy, you both said a lot of what I had to say. I'm in full agreement with them. We can't trust the MTA as far as we can throw one of their buses with our pinkies. And I'm offended by the MTA's extortionist attempt to hold the money that we already get hostage. And I'm outraged. I saw fees, if I understood that chart correctly, Michelle, up to over $15,000 a dwelling unit, as if our housing prices aren't high enough. That's incredible. And I seriously doubt it's going to be the lower number of that range. I really do. I'm proud of our staff for their opposition, and I would heartily request that we show them full support on fighting this ridiculous money grab by the powers down below. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Do we need a vote, or can we just take consensus? Okay. Thank you very much. And Mr. Williams and Michelle, thank you. Okay, NB3.
Mayor Hearns and City Council members, before you today is a recommendation to approve an award of $5,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murder of Mr. Angel Martinez on March 11, 2008. Mr. Martinez, age 61, was a retired NASA employee and a longtime Lancaster resident. He was murdered by suspects unknown. The Sheriff's Department, both our local Detective Bureau and the Homicide Bureau, are working all leads, but they believe that the reward would help stimulate additional information and information sources. As you know, we do not offer rewards lightly. We require that it come directly from the Sheriff's Captain of our station, and that its rewards can be counterproductive in some cases. In this case, the Sheriff's Department believes this will help us in apprehending the suspects involved. We have Lieutenant Don Doughton here from our Detective Bureau. If you have any questions for he or I.
I don't have any questions. I'm totally in support of it, gentlemen.
Support.
That's absolutely. Do we need to vote on this?
Yes, you do, sir.
Yes, we do. I move it.
Second.
Please cast your vote. It is unanimous and is so ordered. At this point, I'm going to ask you to allow us about 5 to 7 minutes to go down the hall and back. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, please. This point going into the council agenda, we have 3 items. I'd like to say very clearly to all council members, including myself, that we need to be sensitive to caring about respecting each other and whatever we present. I've helped tight with that in my entire 18 years of being on the council. So I would certainly hope that each of us say whatever we need to say, but respect of each other as we go through it. So with that in mind, and hopefully you all will help me with that, we'll go to CA1, which is Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been, we've had a couple of discussions over the past year of different possibilities of ordinances, and I've had discussions with the city manager and also the Sheriff's Department. And I wanted to bring forth, I know that Mr. Bazigian is working on a couple of these ideas, but I think it's a whole package, and there's some other new ordinances that I think should be part of this package. So I wanted to bring it to you and have a discussion and maybe give them direction so they see that there's a unified front on this. A couple of things that we've discussed over the past year is one is charging the parents of juvenile delinquents that are doing graffiti and billing them for what the juvenile delinquents are doing. There's also an ordinance in Norwalk that would couple with that Norwalk uses for juvenile delinquents that are arrested numerous times. We're talking the gangsters that we have out here in the valley. Now, Norwalk is now sending them out a letter and civilly suing them and charging the parents for the actions of the children, for the cost of service from our sheriff's department. And that means, so, when our sheriff's department has to go out there and continually take care of these kids, that the parents start getting charged for it. There's additional ordinances that they have there also. The other ordinances are, and this would be in addition to a not hamstring our LANCAP program of criminal abatement that we already have. This would give another tool for not only the criminal abatement of some of the rental properties, but others also. Now, Mr. McEwen has been working on excessive calls for service in one night. Somebody has a loud party, you go there once, you go there twice, all of a sudden you end up 3 and 4 times. They need to pay the $90 an hour or whatever that deputy is for going out there. In addition, if there is a rental property that has been identified by our deputy sheriffs as a gang hangout, gang activity at that rental, Norwalk serves them with the landlord with a letter and says, clean up the act, and if you don't, and we have to come out here because of the gang activity, we're going to start charging you for the service. So I'd like to get a consensus and a discussion from you gentlemen and give staff direction to come back with sort of a package of ordinances that would, like Norwalk has. I know some staff members have already been doing some research on it. From my understanding, it's been very successful in Norwalk, not only for the juvenile crime, but additional gang activity.
Okay. Norwalk has had good success with it. You talking about habitual offense ordinance?
Yes, there's a number of them, yes.
That's a good move. That's a good move. When they start hitting them in the pocketbook, they usually back off.
That'll do it.
Any other comments, gentlemen?
As long as there's some kind of appeal process, in terms of a rental property owner and he's got problem tenants, as long as there's some sort of appeal process in case he's doing his darndest, he's just got bad tenants. It takes time to get, in California, it takes time to get bad tenants out. I want to make sure that there is some protection for the rental property owner. I generally don't side on the property rental.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's.
I want to make sure there's an appeal process built in so that it's applied uniformly and fairly.
In any of those types of ordinances, there's always an appeal process in a period of time like that.
And I think we should follow up on it.
So, is this consensus?
Move forward.
All right, we're going to move forward with that.
We have a speaker's card, Mr. President.
Oh, we got speakers? Okay, come on.
I have one speaker on this, and that's Dixie Iliopoulos. Okay, she has declined to speak.
Okay, all right. So, Mr. City Manager, can we hand that over to you to respond to?
Yes, sir. I'd like to note that our senior criminal justice analyst, James Cobalt, has been down to Norwalk a couple times and has started to work on this and done some very good research. We think we can make a lot of headway with this.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's CA1. And at this time, we have CA2, which is Mr. Difford.
I've received several phone calls, probably 10, 12 of them by now, and it appears that some of the members of the public have taken offense to the way they've been treated, perhaps by certain individual council members or elected officials in general. They've asked that, do we have any kind of ordinance, or do we have any kind of code of conduct? Well, I think you all know that I think in 05 and 06, we went to those feel-good meetings, which, you stack it all up and it was a lot of money. I thought it was a bunch of nonsense. I wouldn't have wasted the money for sure. But the bottom line is that I think the public has a right to expect that those of us that you have elected are going to treat you with a certain amount of respect no matter what. I may not like what you've got to say, but it's your right to say it. And I think that, and I'm a pretty feisty guy at times, so I still think that you have a right to say what you got to say. And as long as you're going to respect me, I'm going to respect you. And if you're doing something that's legal, I'm going to leave you alone. And I think primarily and I don't know where we're going to go with it. I know that there were a number of comments made to me in regards to certain things, and I'm going to how many cards do we have on this?
We have 14 cards.
How many?
14.
I thought we couldn't count past 10. What happened?
14 on CA2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm really not going to take up the time. I know what I think is appropriate, but I think that the people that have something to say should step up and make their statements, and if we need to, if council agrees, we'll turn it over to staff and let it go from there.
Okay, anything else before we turn this over to speakers? All right, City Clerk.
Okay, I would like to remind each one of the speakers that you are allowed 3 minutes to state your concerns. When you come up to the podium, you will see 2 lights. The yellow light will come on when you have 30 seconds left. The red light will come on when your time is up. And we ask that you be respectful of the time to allow other people to have their 3 minutes as well. And with that, our first speaker...
Before you do that, I ask the City Council to be respectful of you. I'm going to ask you to be respectful of all of us as you speak. I do not want any clapping and jeering and screaming. Do not want that. Everybody has a right to speak, and then you do that and do that respectful, we're fine. But if you do not do it respectful, I'm going to be unhappy. I don't know what I can do about it, but I will certainly try to do something about it. All right? With that in mind, go.
Our first speaker is Natalie Hernandez, followed by David Paul.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey, for putting this in. You have to get out what you feel. After all, we the taxpayers are the one that pay your wages, right? So, the proper conduct, well, not very good, not very efficient. Sometimes you call, especially that November the 6th, 2008, I was extremely offended because that day was in the afternoon, that meeting, and we were not allowed to speak, or you had a closed meeting upstairs, and we waste our gas and our time to come here. After all, the public has a right to speak and know what you guys are doing. Anyway, I got very offended because I'm a permanent voter, and I take the time to vote permanent by mail, so I have time to go in the phone and encourage everybody to do the American way, what we're supposed to do right. So I was very offended. I called the City Hall, and thanks, the only one that answered me was Mr. Jeffra, and I'm very grateful to him, because you have to listen to the public. Then I called the Daily Press, and it was like a mixed up. Mr. Hearn says that it was a mistake from the Daily Press. I called the Daily Press, and I talked to somebody, and they said no. So for this, I was very upset because I felt like you violating my right. Also, I was also angry at that you paid $1 million to Las Salas, that man, out of his concern, he used to call us, which you never did before. I've been here 15 years, so I ought to know that. So I felt like you violated my rights. So I thank you for listening, and this is a way I feel very strongly, because I take voting very, very serious. Although I'm a Democrat and a pro-Democrat, I also respect the people that are doing this, because finally they woke up. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you so very much. And we do apologize again. Next.
Okay, David Paul has decided to speak on another item, so we have Darlene Peterson, followed by Scott Pelka.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
If we lived in Russia or some other like-minded country, we would expect intimidation. However, this is America, lest some of you have forgotten that. We do not have to, nor will we indulge any elected official who thinks their position grants them the right to intimidate citizens in any way, shape, or form at any time. Councilman Ron Smith appeared outside election polling places on February 5th in an attempt to disrupt by intimidating the Recall Smith petition gathering people and would-be petition signers. That in itself is a sufficient reason, but not the only reason, to recall him. We do not want to become a police state, and that's how it starts. Therefore, I respectfully suggest that Councilman Ron Smith and apathy are our enemies. I encourage citizens to remove them both. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And next speaker, please.
Scott Pelka, followed by Debbie Phillips.
Who's first?
Scott Pelka.
Okay, go. Yes.
Yeah, I was out there on election day and was basically doing my civil duty to gather signatures. I felt my duty to gather signatures. Mr. Smith had what he felt to do was come out and oppose me, which was fine. That was his right. He also had 6 individuals who came out there that same day. 6 different people. 4 of them were paid by him. 2 of them were paid by the runners. And I know this because I discussed it with him. One of them would not sign the petition to recall him, although he felt he should, but he couldn't because he felt intimidated by Ron Smith. Okay, those are his exact words, not mine. I feel at this time I'm going to request either Mr. Jeff or Mr. Celia, which seem to be the 2 level-headed members of the council here, to find out if they could get Mr. Smith's phone records for the day of the election day from either his personal phone or his city-issued cell phone, if he happens to have one, and find out if he actually did call the sheriff's department or who he called in the sheriff's department to find out for the intimidation tactics that were taking place that day. 3 of the senior citizens that were out trying to collect signatures over at the Lancaster marketplace had 4 sheriff's vehicles with 8 sheriffs called on them at one time. 40 minutes where the time was spent that day of 8 sheriffs. 40 minutes of their time was spent at the Lancaster marketplace. And then Mr. Smith shows up and decides to tell everybody, it's okay, you can let them go. They're not going to be a problem. Come on, give me a break. 2 sheriff's cars came out and talked to me. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I don't know, how you can sleep at night. You should resign right here and now. You should resign right here and now. Do us all a favor. Do everybody in this town a favor. Just walk away.
Thank you, sir.
Debbie Phillips, followed by Arnold Rodeo.
Mayor and members of the City Council.
Yes, ma'am.
I am a Lancaster resident, and I've been working diligently with the committee to recall Ron Smith since November of 2007. I'm outraged at the harassment of my fellow recall workers at polling places in Lancaster on February 5th. I encourage this council to issue a public reprimand of any council member who discourages the free speech of the recall petition circulators. As a taxpaying citizen of this city, I recommend that the council members who thwart the free speech of recall petition circulators or any citizen be required to repeat the ethics training mandated by Assembly Bill 1234 or a similar and appropriate training, and that they do so at their own expense. I refuse to have my tax dollars fund the corrective education of any of the 3 council members who voted to approve the $1 million buyout of former city manager Bob LaSala. Lastly, Councilmember Smith's concern regarding public opinion is extremely inconsistent, and it baffles me. I can't help but wonder why he now cares so much what people think about this recall, when he apparently did not care or listen to the voters when they told him not to get rid of Bob LaSala. And I thank Councilmember Jeffra for bringing this code of conduct issue forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. For the record, you can come on up, Mr. Rodeo. For the record, it was not $1 million. It was short of $1 million. Even if it's $1, it's short of $1 million.
Arnold Rodeo, followed by Richard Hecker.
Yeah, well, actually, I think the 14 cars kind of speaks for itself. A couple of things. One, I think the audience should be able to cheer if somebody says a statement that's positive and they agree with. And I think muzzling an audience so they can't clap or cheer if a speaker says something good, I think that's disrespectful. And that was my main point. One little sidelight, I was actually at a polling place to vote. And your people, Mr. Smith, were 20 feet from the door handing out flyers at a chain link fence to everybody that walked into the polling place in violation of federal law. And when it was mentioned to them, they don't listen to anybody. So if anybody violated a federal law or a voting law or a state law or whatever it was the thugs that you put out at the precincts, and they were at the one that I voted at.
Thank you, Mr. Rodeo.
Richard Hecker, followed by Arthur Akesian.
I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I'd like to start off by reminding you that action speaks louder than words. Now, at these meetings I've been attending lately, especially Mayor Hearns talks about how glad you are to have the citizens participate. You enjoy when the citizens come and fill out a card and speak to you. You enjoy and appreciate their participating in this process. I'd like to remind you that the recall process is also part of our system. What Ron Smith did on that February day is, in my view, an abuse of our system. As a councilman, he should be held to a higher standard than just an ordinary citizen exercising their First Amendment rights and all the anonymity that goes along with it. For him to harass and interfere with the recall process is outrageous. Let me just remind you how this process works. It starts off by citizens gathering signatures on a recall petition. After enough signatures are gathered and it's submitted to the city clerk, then it's placed on a ballot. When it's placed on that ballot, then Ron Smith has plenty of time to explain whatever he wants to explain, make his point known, and the voters will vote. I'd like to direct this next comment to the city attorney. I'm sure he appreciates our right to free speech and how important that is. And I'm sure of all people here, he appreciates how many cases are brought through the courts where that right is vigorously defended, and how many court cases are decided where the concept of chilling free speech is involved. Well, in this regard, to have a councilman interfering with the recall process, that is something I think the city attorney should have a voice on, and I think he would be in a position to explain whether perhaps Lancaster may incur liability by having a city manager interfering with the recall process. So for the rest of the council, I'd like to at this point just ask that you take a stand and voice support for our civil rights, that you rebuke Ron Smith for interfering in the recall process and for the disrespect he showed for our system and for our rights to participate in the recall.
Thank you, sir.
Arthur Akesian, followed by Gary Burgess.
Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
Councilman, I'm a resident of Lancaster and have been for 47 years. I was a member of a committee that successfully incorporated Lancaster over 30 years ago. Sadly to say, many of those individuals are not with us today. One of our themes was to inculcate the idea that the citizenry would be better served through incorporation. I now question whether that is currently true. After attending council meetings during the past year, I felt partially responsible. I feel betrayed, angered, and ashamed of what has transpired. The tactics used by Mr. Smith to intimidate members of the recall committee during the last election were not appreciated. I was photographed by Mr. Smith as I talked to a friend expressing my feelings concerning a loved one's health. This was near the doorway of the precinct. On that day, I was one of the poll workers and not soliciting signatures. Mr. Smith assumed otherwise, proceeding inside and demanding to know who was in charge of that particular precinct. We, the recall committee, are putting Ron Smith et al. On notice that we will be at each of the precincts during the April 8th election to gather signatures, and we'll be carrying cameras and other electronic devices to document tactics used against us. Speaking on behalf of the committee, we were told to be 100 feet from the entrance of each venue, and we were. However, people representing some of the sites told us to remove ourselves, that the property in question was private. Which leads me to ask, is it private even for the day of the election? If a voting person fell in the parking lot requiring medical attention, who is responsible for the remuneration? This needs a response in order to determine private versus public. We would appreciate an answer tonight on that question. We are law-abiding citizens of a republic and not a police state. Many of us in the recall committee have served honorably in the military to protect the rights of all citizens. In our case, the right to free speech and the right to gather peacefully and exercise all legal forms of electioneering without harassment.
Mr. Keezy?
Yes.
Can you wrap it up real quick for that 3 minutes are gone?
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
allowing me to express myself.
Glad to have you. Thank you.
Gary Burgess, followed by Dixie Iliopoulos.
My name is Gary Burgess, and I'm a resident of Lancaster. The reason I say that because I'm kind of proud of that.
Amen.
Mayor Hearns, Vice Mayor Psaki, council members. On February the 5th, I worked a number of polling places to gather signatures for the recall of Councilman Ron Smith. I can overlook what I will call an attitude displayed by Councilman Smith as he visited with us, with some of us, within our, and I'll call it a safe zone outside the 100-foot limit, as we attempted to gather signatures. What I cannot overlook is his use of the Sheriff Department's star by his associates as they countered our efforts. Even though I have had Councilman Smith explain to me in detail that he is authorized to use this symbol because he is endorsed by an organization named Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, I find fault with this because I feel that it is used to intimidate any viewers into submission so as not to have a conflict with the Sheriff Department. I gave the city clerk a picture that was taken that day. You can see the sign that was used and make your own determinations on that. State and federal codes deal with the misuse of police badges. I would suggest that Councilman Smith do research to see what he can use to present to the general public so that he might not, and I quote, deceive an ordinary individual into believing it was a genuine police badge. I have spoken with Councilman Smith, concerning this issue, and I agree with him that on February 5th he was asserting his First Amendment rights, as was our group. Again, as I quoted to the Valley Press, if Councilman Smith can use the Sheriff Department's emblem or a close facsimile thereof, why can't those of us who are volunteers at the Sheriff Department use a facsimile of the Sheriff Department's emblem to display on the Recall Ron Smith signs that we displayed. I will say that I don't believe that Councilman Smith intentionally used the Sheriff Department's emblem in any form to deceive his constituents, but its use in the manner he presented does have the opportunity to intimidate a reasonable and prudent person. I thank you for listening, and thank you, Councilman Jeffrey, for getting this put on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Thank you so very much.
Dixie Iliopoulos, followed by Paul Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor Hearns, Vice
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Visacki, and council members, and for Councilman Jeffrey for putting this on the agenda. I appreciate that. I've attended numbers of Lancaster City Council meetings over many decades through the ebb and tide of public input, approval, and protest regarding items of concern. I'm here tonight as an advocate and a volunteer, the category under which the County of Los Angeles 5th District nominated me as Woman of the Year, and I thank you for acknowledging that tonight. I did it to represent you and all of the citizens of Lancaster and the Antelope Valley. These are positions I've held as a resident and registered voter of Los Angeles County for 54 years, and since 1959 as a resident and family-owned business person in Lancaster. My reason for being here is the first time in all those 54 years I've been treated badly and watched colleagues of like mind doing something legally permitted for reasons they believe important. I will continue to be a resource and a supporter of community building as long as I live here, regardless of letters to the editor, hit mailers against people I love and care for, retaliations for standing up and identifying myself as not a part of a family or a business that was brought forward by Councilman Smith for a development project that was highly controversial. I believe team building facilitates strong, healthy alliances between people whose motive is, A, to do the right thing with no personal or special interest agendas. It's called living the spirit as well as the letter of the law. That's something, as a state licensed escrow holder, I did for 45 years. And I understand it, and I believe in it, and I will stand and fight for it as a believer in Christ and as a patriot of this country. Because it requires partnerships and ongoing consensus building that ascribe values to others rather than disregard for public opinion and participation, I, for one, am very tired of the current experience we're too often having now in the attitudes and actions of at least one elected city councilman who either shares the intent of controlling mentors or lacks the strength to stay free from the control by power and fear by intimidation. Leadership cannot be purchased or strong-armed or gotten by the divide and conquer mentality that I've been watching for quite a while.
Ms. Iliopoulos.
I know. And I'll hurry.
We really need you to wrap that up for us, please, ma'am.
The leadership cannot be purchased by strong-arming. True leaders become such because others believe in and follow them. They can't be bought, hit-mailed, or hit-manned at polls. I experienced that, and I have, may I make a recommendation to close?
Ma'am, you're really out of time.
Okay.
Woman of the Year isn't given a little consideration?
Paul Jennings, followed by Amelia Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor Visacki and council and staff. I was one of the three that was at the election on February the 5th at the marketplace, Lancaster Marketplace, where they had the polling place at the old food court. We got there and measured the distance from the door, which is required by law. We had all of the legal requirements of the state code. We set our distance and started collecting signatures. Shortly thereafter, the lady that came, that was running the polling place, came out and said we were too close to the front door and we had to move back another 200 or 300 feet, which was, if y'all are familiar with that area, it was about where the dress barn is. I tried to show her the California Code of Electioneering that allowed us 100 feet from the door of the polling place, but she wouldn't pay any attention to it. So we went ahead and we moved back a little bit, but we went ahead collecting signatures. Before we knew it, 2 cop cars, I shouldn't say that, 2 sheriff's deputies' cars came with, I think, 2 deputies each. And they talked to, Ron Smith had a supporter there also, and he had this sign that was previously mentioned about the Association of Sheriff Deputies, and had the emblem of the Sheriff's Department on it. And so there was 4 of us there, 3 for and 1 against Ron Smith. The sheriff's deputies talked to the supporter of Ron Smith, but didn't talk to any of us. So they stood around and observed, didn't do much of anything at that time. Then within probably 30, 45 minutes, here come the second group of 2 squad cars with 4 more deputies. Well, we didn't know what was going on yet. My wife asked, what was the problem? She was told that that the report had been called in that we were creating a major disturbance and interfering with the people that were coming to vote. Well, we told them, or my wife told them, that we were obeying all of the laws, that we were a proper distance away from the polling place, and that we weren't harassing anyone.
If you would.
Okay, I've got a lot to say, but I'll wrap it up as quick as I can.
I really need you to help me with that. We got a whole slew of people that need to speak.
I understand, sir.
So I really need you to cut it right here, if you would, please, sir.
Well, boil down real quickly.
All right.
The supporter of Ron Smith came and asked me, after the second group of police were there, if they had taken my name. And I said, yes, they had, my name and birthday. And he said, well, they didn't. They took mine, the first group.
Sir, I'm going to really need you to cut it off here.
All right, real quickly. He said that he called Ron Smith because they took his name and not ours, and that was why he called Ron Smith. And that's when shortly thereafter...
Mr. Jennings, I really need you to cut this off right here.
Okay. But it was...
I really need you to cut this off, Mr. Jennings.
Yes. Sorry. And appreciate your
tolerance,
sir.
It's all right. Thank you, sir.
Amelia Jennings, followed by Jim Barletta.
Mayor Hearns, council
ma'am.
members, and staff, thank you for having me. I'm Amelia Jennings. I'm a resident of Lancaster. I've been a resident of Lancaster not quite 2 years, and I'm very, very disappointed in what I have been seeing since I've been here. I'm one of the recall Councilman Ron Smith petitioners that were out at the marketplace with my husband Paul. And I too don't appreciate all of the misuse of the sheriff that showed up that night. It was very unnecessary. We were exercising our constitutional rights as a legal voter, peacefully gathering signatures on election day. And we arrived there at 5. We were there from between 5 and 7 in the evening, so I guess we were the last visit that Mr. Smith paid to the polling places. As my husband mentioned, we did first had the 2 patrol cars show up with at least 4 gentlemen in the cars, and then there was two more cars that showed up. And each of these cars had flashing lights as if there was something very drastic going on, and it was very scary, us being out there getting petitions. And so I asked what the problem was, and of course, as my husband said, he said that we were the problem, that we were causing a big disturbance, that they'd had a call, that there was a large group of people out there that was disturbing the voters and harassing them, and we were doing none of these things. So after Councilman Smith showed up, and he stood around and he stared at us with kind of a dirty stare, I guess. The person he had there was a very nice person. He was just joining us, and we had no problems at all until the person from the polling place showed up and asked us to move back. And then all the sheriff's cars showed up. On the CA1 that Mr. Smith was discussing, on the excessive calls of service, to me this was very much an excessive calls of service. And I believe that Mr. Smith is behind all of this. So, Mayor Hearns, I believe if you cannot control Councilman Smith, then you should do one good thing for this city before you leave, and that is ask Councilman Smith to resign.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Who's next?
I believe Councilmember Jeffer would like to say something.
I think we got the idea. Let me suggest to you, everybody has the right to come up and speak. And certainly that's everybody's option, and I agree. We do this on a fairly regular basis, and we have a lot of folks that do come up. But I think I've got the picture where there are some things that we can check on. I'm sure that we can find out. Lieutenant Downton? Sir? The nature of the phone call that was made regarding that, regarding the units going to the marketplace. Can we find out the nature of that phone call? Who, we don't need a name, but if it was, how that was presented to the dispatcher.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay. If it would satisfy the public here tonight, I think that there's a procedural thing that we can take a look at, and we can come up with the proper information for you, if that would work. My theory about this was that thanks, Tom. My theory about this was that there was overall conduct in various things, I mean, me included, that were going to be discussed. I didn't know that we were going to look at a singular issue, and that was, I mean, if that's something that's going to be brought out, okay, fine. But if we know what the problem is, and obviously we've identified something, let's go out and see if we can find the solution to it. We can check the nature of the call. We can find out how that call was issued and what was, because all of those calls that go to the sheriff's station are taped. So we can certainly look at it. We can certainly find out. Will that satisfy the folks that have not spoken yet? No. I didn't think it would. But, I have no hair to scratch. Consequently, I thought that I would make that.
I think it was a good suggestion. The next speaker.
Jim Barletta, followed by Jason Smith.
How do you spell Lester?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, staff, city manager. I'd like to tip my hat, first of all, to Mr. Jeffrey for bringing us up or give a chance to address what I felt was wrong. About 2 months ago, I came here right at the end of a council meeting and I spoke to you about the water regional, I forget the exact wording of it, the one that's got toilet to tap in it. And in all due respect to Mr. Williams, we both disagree. I mean, I disagree with what he thinks about it, and of course I know he disagrees with what I think about it. But I've been involved in water since 1974, and I've learned an awful lot about water. I know you can contaminate a water aquifer big time. In fact, right now, as I'm sitting here speaking to you, there's a city in Colorado that I'm very familiar with because my in-laws are all back there, a town of Alamosa. It's in the San Luis Valley. They are having one heck of a time right now because they got contaminated big time. They are passing out 1 gallon of water to a resident per day. Their restaurants have closed down. It's bad. If you could see how something like that could happen, what I'm referring to is the night that I addressed you folks here, and that water management plan that you voted on had the clause in it that would allow recycled sewer water to go into our drinking water. And I still highly oppose that to no end. And where I'm here now tonight on the subject is when I addressed you folks, nobody had any questions. An issue as serious as our water is, nobody, not even one individual, asked me any kind of a question or even asked anybody. You didn't discuss it among yourselves. You listened to Mr. Williams, and he painted a picture that looked good, and you bought it. All 5 of you voted right just that quick. I don't think I had a chance to even sit down when the vote came about. That was wrong, gentlemen. You should have, an issue as important as our water is, you should have really studied it. You should have put it on an agenda for a workshop. You should have had some professionals come in here and really show you what's going on. And I hope you take this as constructive criticism, gentlemen. I'm not trying to point a finger at anybody. We're all human beings. Sometimes we drop the ball. But I'm going to ask that whenever the new council comes in, and I definitely hope it's a new council, that one of the first things they do is maybe get a study on water and really go in and take a good look at what we got going on here. It's serious, gentlemen. Let me tell you. I don't want to see happen here what's going on back in the San Luis Valley of Colorado.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you again for speaking.
I want to make just a statement on this. Now, normally I don't do this. First of all, I'm glad you recognize that you were not on CA2. But let me just mention the fact that I really do appreciate your sincerity. I appreciate your years of experience. I have a degree in civil engineering myself. Master's in environmental engineering, which took care of water and all the other things that go with it. And I know without a question in my mind that you're absolutely right in your concern. However, it is not a problem if everything is handled like it's supposed to be handled. And I'll leave that at that point and be glad to sit with you and me, if you'd like, one of these days. We just sit down and talk about it. I'd be glad to. And maybe we can. You either can convince me or I can convince you. Hopefully. Thank you so much. Go ahead, sir. No, ma'am. We're still on it.
Jason Smith, followed by Arnie Rodeo.
Sounds like a nerve was touched on this subject. I'm actually going to defer the remainder of my time to Ms. Eliopoulos if she wishes to finish the comments that she had started.
The normal process followed by the council in the past is never to allow the assignment of time from one speaker to another. If Mrs. Eliopoulos would like to speak, either one, you can allow her to do that with council consent, or two, she can come back and speak on non-agenda item.
Let's,
What was that?
The non-agenda.
The non-agenda?
why don't we go ahead, since you're at the podium, gentlemen.
Well, thank you. Let me see if I can find
Let's,
where I was.
can you do that in 1 minute, please, ma'am,
No.
for us?
I can't.
All right.
I have to find my place here. I just want to establish that I was not a part of the formation committee, but I have given financial support, and I said about circulating petitions, as is my right to do. I took personal responsibility for obtaining neighbors within my own polling place to circulate petitions and gather signatures at our designated polling place at Desert Christian High School at 25th Street West and Avenue J8. I had made that perfectly clear ahead of time to the Executive Director, Cecil Swetland, my good friend, and he did not call me back to tell me there was any problem with doing that. I believed, because of the public outcry against senator runners engaging the Antelope Valley Chambers of Commerce in a suggestion that they take a position of no or no position at all on the recall, that all of my neighbors in that area at 27th Street West and Avenue J were already extremely concerned about some of the projects that were going in out there, and that if I and neighbors within that area were the ones at that polling place, it would form a natural bridge between the displeasure with what our senator had done with the chamber and the registered voters that would be going to that polling place anyway. I have a balanced reputation, I think, for bringing cohesiveness to things, and that was my intent. When I went to the polling place at 8 o'clock on Election Day, the signature process was ordinary and uneventful. People either wanted to sign or said no thank you, wished a pleasant day. The arrival of a woman dressed in black, later followed by a man dressed in black, followed by Ron Smith dressed in black, followed a camera that took my picture, and I take that as an intent to cast fear and to incite the idea upon parents and people coming to the campus that there was a problem. There was no problem. When Mr. Smith took my picture, it was after the woman had said she had flyers to hand out to potential voters. That is not what she did. She got in the face of the petition signer and said, do not sign that until you read this, and then talked over the volunteer that was speaking with the petition signer. After 4 times, I politely went across to her and I said, I know you have as much right to be here as we do, but I assure you I would never approach you, stick anything in the face of a person that you were engaged with, or talk over you while you were speaking. I think that's extremely rude. Please don't do that again. She picked up her cell phone, made a call. Thus came the man in black, followed by Ron Smith with his camera, put it in my face and said, I got you, Dixie. And I said, you do whatever you think is right with my picture. However, if you choose to put it in the Valley Press, I believe we will get more signatures than if you do not. He engaged me in a conversation saying that this was nothing more than my position on Robert LaSala and a 30-year-old vendetta against Frank Visco, to which I replied to him, this has everything to do with the votes I've watched you make and not any of the things you have suggested. Yes, I will. As Executive Director Swetland came apologetically handing me a 1-page statement saying this is not a demand, you're legally where you're supposed to be, but I am asking you to take this to a facility off of our campus. And we did that immediately. I believe that Mr. Smith is a person who should be found in violation of his oath. I've read I forwarded a copy as I requested of the Code of Ethics today. I believe that he should be found in violation of his oath, known public policy and code of conduct and ethics. He surely cannot be acting with the intent to carry out the spirit as well as the intent of the law. and the penalties for his action and lack of integrity, failure to live up to the intent behind the public policy and code of conduct, must be administered. That is my request tonight.
Okay.
What are you going to do with this conduct? I believe he owes us all the respectful responsibility of resigning and not putting us to a recall petition. They were violated their legal right to petition.
Thank you, ma'am.
Didn't matter if they were for or against the recall.
Thank you,
They
ma'am.
were denied that legal right. Thank you.
Marty?
Ladies and gentlemen, we need your help. Not only are we going overtime with her, and now the clapping and all that just takes up more time. Mr. Rodeo.
Mayor Hearns, members of the City Council,
Mr. Rodeo.
I was the guy that called a committee to form the City of Lancaster, and I ran a petition drive for the City of Lancaster. You know, tonight I hang my head down of what this city's become, really. I'm very disappointed. Something is happening in the city, and I think you should be aware of it. And I think the clerk should be looking into it, and maybe even the city attorney. People are out trying to gather signatures and are being denied the right to gather them. When we did cityhood, we gathered signatures in all the markets. Even the churches helped us. When they did the gay marriage initiative, they signed them at the churches. I know. I was at church and signed it. Ray Davis's recall, they ran it all over town. Now we have local citizens out there trying to recall a city council member. And it's met with a lot of opposition. And a lot of people's rights are being denied to them. If you read the Constitution, it says you have a right to petition. You have that right. And there's a law that says you have to be a certain distance from the polling place. But when you go to the library, which is a public place, I think, isn't it? The people are being told at the library, you can't be here, you have to be out on the street. If I stand outside of this city hall in that little area out there, that's public area. It belongs to the public. This building belongs to the public. That library belongs to the public. But these citizens are being denied that right. They're being told to move away. A woman had her sign leaning against a bush, and she was told to remove her sign from the bush. What are we becoming here? Are we denying the rights of our citizens? Do we want people down below to find out that we are a city that is denying people's rights? Remember when we were called a city with no sex? Remember that? Do we want all that television cover that we're not going to allow people to go out and get petitions? I think they have that right. And I don't think that anyone should stop them as long as they comply with the law. And I think the clerk should look into that. And I think the city attorney should look into the rights of the people that are being denied to them. Because there could be some lawsuits filed.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you. Next.
David Aber, followed by Joseph Vera.
Good evening, Council. I was going to yield my time to the Lady of the Year also. It's amazing how you offer somebody the opportunity to speak and then you don't let them talk. I've been coming here about 15 years and seeing a lot of that done to myself. Mr. Jeffra, my hat off to you for bringing this forth, and I'm going to miss you on the council here, but you did a great job by bringing this forth. And it's going to be a new council when we come back, folks. Hopefully, as I hear loud and clear, you do need to resign, Mr. Smith. You violated the oath. You violate people's rights. You trample on people's rights to go vote and make it an uncomfortable position for all the people in Lancaster. I'm glad that all of you are here. It used to just be David Aber before you, and it was like, oh, it's only David, it doesn't matter. Well, now, guess what? You woke up the rest of the community, and they finally, after about 8-9 years, maybe they knew all along, but they're no longer sitting back and taking the trampling on the rights by the city attorney, who needs to go also. Okay? We got Brown Act violation in the case we forgot. Mr. Basaki is the tax savior, but it was $1 million that we're paying Mr. LaSala to leave. That's taxpayer dollars, but you're a proven tax fighter. I don't believe so, sir. Okay? It's time for the people to leave, and three to my left, you will probably all be gone, with a little luck from the voters. But when are you going to protect the rights of the citizens here? The water treatment issue, which I know isn't on CA2 here. I told you guys about this 4 years ago when it was $113 million. Now it's $500 million. Okay? I won't even take up my whole 3 minutes. You need to resign, Mr. Smith. I'm tired of you dragging Mr. Cilio's personal business through the chambers here to take the heat off of you for your failure to follow your oath and act in an ethical way in the best interest of the citizens. Thank you.
Joseph Vera, followed by Carlos Gomez.
What's the name? The next.
Joseph Vera.
Vara. Council? Oh, that was some harsh words there. Mine is, I would like to know when our civil rights are to be acknowledged and protected by the Sheriff's Department, and that the Sheriff's Department should be more sensitive to these rights. They should not take sides due to any affiliation with Councilman Ron Smith and remain neutral through this entire recall movement. And what will our council do about this problem in the future? And I think the city clerk should look into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Carlos Gomez, followed by Holly Pelka.
Good evening, gentlemen, council. I'd just like to say a couple things here. Earlier today, and it goes with the code of conducts of a council and the mayor, you had a gentleman come up here and speak about some plants over by the new hotels, by Jethawk Stadium, Clear Channel, whatever name it goes by this year. And you guys just took a vote like that. Nobody listened to what the man was saying. That was a perfect opportunity for this council to come as one and listen to what the people are saying. Listen to what they're saying. Don't vote on something instantaneously. The man's got some great ideas out there, and you guys could be the founders, the trailblazers for water conservation for the county of Los Angeles. There is a major water issue. You have another gentleman that spoke to you guys at a council meeting here I was at before regarding water issues. You blew them off. You're not listening to the public. If you're really about a code of ethics, listen to them. I think only one of the council members opposed them, and I applaud you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Holly Pelka.
The name again, please.
Holly Pelka.
Yes, gentlemen, my name is Holly Pelka. I've been a resident of Lancaster for 8 years, and I've lived in the Antelope Valley for 21 years. I may be repeating what some other people have said, but I turned in my yellow card and then they spoke. Earlier, Mr. Smith discussed the ordinances against the excessive use of sheriff services, and I'm in favor of that, by the way. I think that was an excellent proposal. But I think it's also hypocrisy in the extreme on his part, given his conduct on Election Day, February 5th, 2008. 4 sheriff cars were sent to the Lancaster Marketplace. 2 cars were sent to Sunnyvale Elementary School. There were other cars sent to a 3rd location, 2 officers in each car. And think of all the other things that they could have been doing that day to protect us and to eliminate crime, to investigate crime. I don't know, something else other than what they were doing. I would like to thank Councilman Jeffra for bringing this on the agenda and the officer who agreed to look into the phone calls made to the dispatcher. But I would like to reiterate my husband's suggestion to review Mr. Smith's phone calls that day, because I suspect that the call was not made to the dispatcher, but perhaps Mr. Smith calling someone higher up in the Sheriff's Department. I would also like to reiterate the calls on Mr. Smith to resign. And finally, I would like to call on the council to censure Mr. Smith for violating the Code of Conduct. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Would you please help me out? Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to help Mrs. Peterson. I really do. Next speaker.
That concludes our speakers.
Okay. On CA2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
I think we've heard from the speakers. I have asked the lieutenant to check into the phone call. Let's wait until we get the information back, until we can determine exactly what took place, what the call was about, because there had to be a call in order to get the units to come out there. So let's find out what the nature of that call was, exactly what was told to our dispatcher, and we'll go from there. I think that's the only way to handle it.
You have any comments, Mr. Smith?
Yes. No, that's a good suggestion. I think that's absolutely, that, it was obvious when a couple of when the gentleman came up and said that the poll worker came out and asked him to move back. He might have been in the right spot, but the poll worker was asking that. Soon, the sheriff's department showed up. I can tell you categorically that I did not call anybody to call the sheriff's department. I did not call the captain. And any captain that would go and harass citizens at a request of a council member should be dismissed. I didn't call anybody. I didn't call anybody that was helping me or volunteering and saying, call the sheriff's department. So I'm all for, let's get the tape, and that's fine. That's great.
Can you take pictures?
I'd like to also address the idea that, Bob Wilson, who's the reporter sitting back there, called me when this story was working up. And I had been called ahead of time by ALADS that Bob Wilson was calling them and asking to talk to Steve Remich, who's the president of ALADS. And he actually emailed the photograph that they were going to use in the newspaper about a sign, and the sign that was in the newspaper, and one of the volunteers was holding it. It had the ALADS logo that looked similar to a sheriff's badge, and it said the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs supports Councilman Ron Smith. It also said Senator George Renner and Assemblywoman Scherner. So when Bob Wilson called me and said, well, you're being accused of using the sheriff's department's badge, I told Mr. Wilson back there, I said, no, that was the ALADS logo. I'm endorsed and supported by the association and can use that badge in any political aspect that I see fit. Mr. Wilson called ALADS. ALADS talked to me. I talked to the president. I talked to one of the workers there. And they said that they related the same information to Mr. Wilson. The newspaper decided to make the decision to print on the front page of the paper that I used the official Sheriff's Department's badge. That is incorrect. I called Mr. Anderson, who's also sitting back there, and told him that I wanted a retraction. The next day, the newspaper put a nice retraction. Of course, that always happens in a small little tiny box on the next page. The job was done. The deed was done. Okay? So, no, the Sheriff's Department's badge was not used, and the only reason I bring it up here, this is a televised, meeting. This is the thing that was brought up, and anybody else can call ALADS down in Monterey Park and talk to them anytime, and they'll tell you the same thing. Candidates that are endorsed use the emblem all the time. And so that's all I have to say about that, but I thank Mr. Jeffra for saying, let's get the tape and let's find out what happened.
What about your phone bill?
Help me out,
I
folks.
want a response to the phone bill.
Sir,
Sir, excuse me.
you've already spoken. You've already spoken.
I asked you in my 3-minute time to please audit his phone bill.
You've already spoken.
Phone bill. That's what I want.
You've already spoken, sir.
That's right.
Okay, anything else on CA2? If not, we'll move on to CA3. And Mr. Celio. I need to know what's out
Okay, after our technical difficulties. As we know, at election time, a lot of mailers show up in our voters' mailboxes. And in many instances, it's not clear who's sending them or who's paying for them. Recently, some of these, in my eyes, have crossed all sense of decency and truthfulness. And at least one of them uses a racial stereotype. So I decided to take a look at what our voters receive in their mailbox and what information is readily available to that voter to try and determine what's true, what's not, who's sending it, and why they might be sending it. And here's some examples of what they get in their mailbox during election season. This one caught my attention for a couple of reasons. One, personally, I'm offended, and the rest of my family who shares this name was offended. My council seat's not even up. I'm not sure why this came out on a mailer. And it didn't have anything to do with discussing an issue I've taken, or a position I've taken on an issue, or a vote I've taken. It was about attaching my family name to an organization that's connected with murder, prostitution, drugs, blackmail, and everything else that you could negative that you could possibly come up with and connect to organized crime. So you can see why I might want to know who sent it. This is the backside of that mailer, and it was sent by an organization that purports to be, and I have trouble believing the name, Taxpayers for Honest Government. It's an out-of-town committee that, as far as I can determine, doesn't report any financial information to our city clerk. It's in Roseville, California. I had to look on a map to see where Roseville is. I'd really like to find out who's hiding behind this organization and what their true agenda is. Why don't they be honest and tell us who the taxpayers are that's funding them? So I did a little digging, looked at the other mailers that have shown up in my mailbox, and I found hit mailers like this attacking a slate of candidates who are running for the council. Let me put an aside here. I've done my best to blur out candidates' names and issues described in the mailers. I'm focusing on who sent the mailers and why they may have sent them. As we see down the edge, again, it's paid for by Taxpayers for Honest Government with an ID number. When you flip that mailer over, you see this. This time the return address is something called Lancaster Republicans at 2763 West Avenue L, number 233 in Lancaster, California. Sent out using a professional mailer, apparently goes by the name of MSI. Well, who is Lancaster Republicans? I don't think that was sent by every registered Lancaster Republican. It must be some kind of committee. I don't have any information on who Lancaster Republicans are, but our Valley Press did some digging, and in a recent news story, let me give you a few quotes. One of the latest in a series of hit mailers attacking city council office seekers appears to have numerous ties to council member Ron Smith. The mailer was sent by voters to voters by an amorphous group identifying itself as Lancaster Republicans, and gives the address. The address is one Smith provides for contacting him through his personal internet website. So it appears that there's at least one local connection for this committee. Other mailers, here's one by one of our mayoral candidates, has a similar but not exact address, 2763 West Avenue L, with a different private mailbox. Same address, different box number. Is that a solid link? No, it's not. It doesn't give the voter much information to go on, but it certainly would raise a concern because these mailers aren't cheap. Anyone who's run for office knows that to design and print and mail out a single mailer to all of the likely voters in this city are running in the neighborhood of $8,000 for each one. Given the number of mailers that our voters have received in the last several days and weeks, who can raise and spend that kind of money? Well, you know, that's one piece of information that we actually do have readily available to our voters. On our city website, we do list our 460s and 470s, how much money has been raised. Now, this is not entirely accurate, and it's only up to date through February 23rd. As you recall, I had asked for this election cycle that there be more frequent reporting of our campaign financial filings. But I did put this in a chart. It's a little easier to understand, see who's raising money and what they might be doing with it. It's pretty clear that one candidate has raised more money than every other candidate put together, more than 10 times the amount of the nearest candidate, and if my memory serves correctly, twice as much as has ever been raised for a council election. What does that mean? Don't know. It's not enough information. Our voters don't have enough information to make a rock-solid decision about who's sending these mailers or why. There's other mailers. Now, sometimes mailers don't get sent out by the candidate. Sometimes they get sent out, as we've seen, by independent committees. Here's another out-of-town committee, not connected, doesn't have to report to our city, Citizens Anti-Crime Committee. Little caveat, this one happens to be for Mr. Grooms. There's another one with Sherry Marquez, same address, out of town. In their defense, independent committees, they may have absolutely no knowledge that it's being sent out. I won't fault them for this mailer, but somebody's sending it out. Somebody's spending a lot of money. Here we have, as we saw on this mailer, the Lancaster Republican mailer, sent out using the MSI professional mailing service. This out-of-town committee also uses the same mailer. And again, that same mailer. Is that a smoking gun? Nope. But it certainly raises the question, who's paying for this and why would they? Of all the professional mailing services in the state of California, how is it in Santa Margarita, West Avenue L in Lancaster, and Roseville, they wind up using similar services? I think our voters want more information. More information for our voters is better than less information. Right now, we put our 460s and 470s, our campaign filings, on our city website. It gives our voters some information, some ability to make an informed and intelligent decision. I think we should expand upon that. I think for all elected office holders, for all elected office candidates, for all of our appointees, such as planning commissioners, all of the financial filings, FPPC type of filings, whether it be statement of economic interest, campaign filings, anything of that, 410s, the formation of committees, should be placed on our city website in a timely manner. I don't think that's too much to ask. Now, is that going to solve the problem of that kind of stuff? No. But it's a very small, basic step to start. So I'll be moving tonight that we add those types of filings to our city website, and to maybe dig into this kind of stuff as to who might pay for it and not want to report who's paying for it. I'd like to direct staff to begin to investigate how we can get our handle on these independent committees. Some independent committees do report to the city clerk. They are city committees. Fairly easy to post that type of information. Some independent committees are county committees. Some independent committees are statewide committees. I don't have the expertise to know if we can even get that information and post it on our city website. or if there's preemption issues, if it's, say, a state committee. I don't have that expertise, but Mr. McEwen's capable. I'm sure he can look at this issue, come back with some suggestions or options about what we can do to give our voters more and better information so they can make an informed decision. The other thing that comes to mind about mailers, and this is a bit of an aside, perhaps staff could work on this as well. I believe there's an ordinance that when a committee or candidate sends out a mailer, that a copy needs to go to the city clerk. Give them some heads up, a chance for the public to review, hopefully get some information about where they're coming from and who's paying for it. I don't believe there's any teeth in that ordinance about what happens if you don't give the clerk a copy. I think we should look at that as well and see if we can strengthen that ordinance, again, in the name of giving our citizens better and more transparent information, more transparent government. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, let me just make one comment on the last ordinance item. It is a misdemeanor for violating that ordinance.
I'm sorry?
It's a misdemeanor for violating that ordinance, and that's the highest level of enforcement that we can impose under state law. So I don't know how there isn't much we can do to strengthen that, but I think the other things that he was talking about dealing with the committees deserves some exploration.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Independent expenditure committees, don't they have filing requirements?
Right.
Do they have pre-election filing requirements, or is it semi-annual?
I believe it's semi-annual.
Oh, so I understand your concern on that one, because then it's after July.
Right. It's very simple for someone to hide behind an out-of-area committee, and the voter never knows who's paying for it, and the voter can't surmise who might be sending it and why.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Comments after we have speakers' cards.
Oh, yeah, cards. Okay.
Arnold Rodeo, followed by David Paul.
How many speakers' cards do we have?
I have 3 on this item.
Arnold Rodeo, I'm a citizen of Lancaster also. Actually, running for mayor, and it's an interesting experience because I never thought I'd be part of a hate mailer. I don't consider the Celio family thing a hit piece. I consider it hate mail, plain and simple, and I did not appreciate having my face put on one of the puppets. If you want to get into this a little bit better, though, I think you need to sit there and on the campaign contribution things have to add a requirement that you disclose the officers and all of the stockholders of every LLC that donates to a candidate. Because you can bury dozens and dozens of campaign contributions through a series of LLCs and not know they're all linked to the same person. So I would look into doing something along that lines. I would also look into that if you file an economic interest statement and it's not complete, which has happened in this last go-around, that it not be accepted by the city, because the Political Fair Practices Commission doesn't look at anything for a long, long time, and the election's already over. So I think that the economic interest statements should be reviewed at the city, and if they're not found complete, not accepted, and the candidate should not be allowed to run. Thank you.
David Paul, followed by Denise Latanzi.
Mr. Mayor and council members.
Yes, sir.
I, too, was a little upset with the Cilio family hit mailer. First, because I'm sorry, Ed, no one told me you were a godfather. I would have treated you with more respect. Secondly, it disparages Chicago-style politics. And I'm from Chicago, as you all know. Now, before I go on, I just want to ask, are we going to find out who sent the hit mailers, and are we going to find out before the election? Who has that answer? I don't. But one thing that I have tried to do for the last couple of years is point the city into the direction of the future. I found out something very interesting this week. The city of Victorville is moving to become a charter city. And some of the things in their charter draft pertain to the county coming in and co-opting our gas fees, and all these things protect us becoming a charter city. And I'm advocating the strong mayor form, the manager-council form of government. I'm going to speak about that a little further in my closing remarks. But this removes the onus and the suspicion of power brokers. The power broker becomes the elected mayor of the city. And it just seems like an idea whose time has come, and I will talk more about that in my closing
Okay,
remarks.
I need to know where he's going with this. Okay.
There you go.
Denise Latanzi?
Mr. Mayor, gentlemen,
Yes.
I don't mind admitting that I'm one of the candidates who is hit simply because I have an Italian last name. I can't tell you how offensive I find this. Not only am I not a criminal, I've never been arrested, I don't have any criminal record. My husband is a senior architect with Lockheed Martin Corporation, and that's where the Italian last name comes from. So I find this incredibly offensive. As a candidate, I have to sign something that basically says I'm going to act fair and ethically in my campaign. That means I can't do the things that it appears that Mr. Smith here is doing. The Cilio family mailer, the mailer that links directly back to his post office box address, is too much. If I have to abide by this, and I have to abide by these rules as a candidate, why doesn't Mr. Smith, as a sitting councilman, have a higher standard than I do? He actually sits on the council, and anything and everything that he does reflects upon the city. Hitting me because I have an Italian last name is not only offensive, it violates the code of ethics that I signed. So it should violate the code of ethics that he sits here under. Thank you.
Question, point of order. Mr. Councilman Cilio, is my P.O. box, or the P.O. box that a number of Republicans have used for different things, is that on the Cilio mailer? I'd have to look at the mailer. I believe that.
I can answer that. It's actually funded by the same organization. The Cilio family mailer is funded by exactly the same organization that funded the Lancaster Republicans mailer, using your address.
Okay.
No, the question was, is that P.O. box that was shown up there that was linked to me by Bob Wilson, is that on the Cilio mailer? Not who not the committee, not who it was paid by. You stated, Ms. Latanzi, that my address was on that mailer. That is factually incorrect. So, I've seen a copy of the mailer. I saw a copy of the other mailer that they said the P.O. box was on. My address is not on that Cilio mailer. You were wrong. And if you'd like to show, and you got the address up there, I think you were showing the address that it was come from. I'd like to see it if a P.O. box that's related to me is on that mailer.
I believe what I said was...
Now, I'm not asking what you said. I know what you said.
Okay.
And I know what she said. She's factually correct. I'm just asking you if you're looking on there. I'm sure that if my P.O. box was on that mailer, that would have been part of your PowerPoint. So it's just not correct. So if it is, you can bring it in at the next council meeting, and you can show it, everybody. Okay? You've been wrong before a number of times on factual. Okay?
Yeah,
so
well,
bring it in.
Hello, ma'am.
Bring it in. Mail.
Ms. Peterson, I'm asking here that conversation is exchanged, not blurted over each other. And I'm going to require that. Anything else?
No, that was my point of order of personal privilege. Any more cards?
Can I address
Any more
that?
cards?
Can he address me
Go ahead.
directly?
Have her address it if you can show the facts.
I will clarify the point. Your address was on the Lancaster Republicans mailer that was funded by exactly the same people that funded the Cilio family mailer. And you can say that there's no connection, but that is a direct connection. A direct connection.
So the question back to you again, Ms. Latanzi, is my P.O. box, no, the question, this is a personal point of privilege. You made a statement on the public record here that the P.O. box that they're connecting to me was on the Cilio mailer. Is that a yes or no?
No, that is not what I meant, and that is not what I intended to say.
I didn't say what you meant. I said what you stated. Okay, you
What
can
I
go watch it
stated
on the
was that
internet.
your address was on the Lancaster Republicans mailer that was a hit mailer, that was absolutely a hit mailer, and factually incorrect, was funded by the same people that funded the Cilio family mailer, period.
We can go back and look at the tape, and that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right.
There's no other speakers.
Any other speakers?
No, sir.
No further speakers? Okay.
So, I guess my motion, as I said at the end of my presentation, was that I'm going to violate the rules that we have up here. I'm going to move my microphone. My motion would be that we include all campaign-related financial filings, 410s, 460s, 470s, Statement 700s, for all elected officials, all candidates, all political appointees by the council, to be posted on the City of Lancaster website so that our citizens can have a maximum amount of transparency in the financial aspects of campaigns and their representatives. Second, just for direction to staff, that they begin to investigate independent committees and their financial filings and come back with some options about which one of those independent committees can be posted on our city website in a timely manner.
I got a question.
I do too.
Isn't all of this, these filings that we do, the Form 700s and all that wazoo stuff that we fill out, that's a matter of public record, correct?
Yes.
So shouldn't it go on the website anyway?
Certainly can.
Yeah, I mean, what difference does it
no reason
make?
why
I
you
mean,
can't.
Shouldn't we get it out there and...
No problem, I second the motion.
Okay.
Wait, there's a little bit, there's some other things that is included in there, and I'm not sure I'm in support of that. And that is this, that should the city be responsible for checking who sent hit mailers and who pays for it and all that? If I understood that correctly, is that what we should be doing?
I don't believe that was part. That was not.
That wasn't your
directly
motion,
part of
Okay.
my motion.
Was not in.
Can you restate your motion?
Restate your motion.
My motion was, and for the sake of brevity, I'll call it FPPC-related filings. Is that, we know what those are.
460s and 700s.
Right. To be posted on the city website. And for clarification, the purpose is for ease of the voters and residents to look at this information for themselves and make determinations. Yes, it's already a public record, but if you want to go look at 700s, you got to do what I had to do. You got to go spend $6.40 to get a whole stack of photocopies. When we have the technology to just put it on the website for our citizens to look at. We already do that with some forms. I'm saying let's expand it to include all the council members, all the planning commissioners, all the candidates.
And that's what I seconded. The 460s, 470s. It's already public
700s.
record.
Okay.
460s and 700s.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
I have some comments before we
Go ahead.
vote. One is, I support putting all the FPPC stuff, any of the campaign finance, on the internet. In fact, we've had 2 discussions about it.
Yeah.
So I want to go over this. December 11th, here's the minutes from the meeting on our website also. It can be accessed. And this was the comment that I made. It's in the minutes. It says, this was under CA1 of campaign finance from Councilman Cilio. It says, it may be a good idea to place the conflict of interest statements and the campaign statements on the internet, and this would be easy to do. Okay. At the end of that, we directed staff to look into that. So we've already done that. In fact, as Councilman Cilio said, he got that information off the website. That's where he got the 460 information. Should the 700s be put up? Yes, absolutely. New business one, when we had the report from the city attorney on campaign limits, my statement once again was, the electronic posting should be considered so that all citizens would be able to see what is being contributed. And there needs to be more investigation on how this could happen. And it says he requested, meaning Councilman Smith, a consensus from the council to give direction to staff to look into this. And we did.
We did.
In fact, Ms. Bryant has already put all of the 460s up there. Like I said, that's where Councilman Cilio got it from. The first question from Mr. Cilio is that you put 3 candidates up there on different mailers. I like how you said you tried to blur it to, block everybody out, but Rex Parris's name was up there, Sherry Marcus's name was up there, Larry Groom's name was up there. You also then go and make an innuendo and connect the hit mailers because of the indicia on it, MSI, with Rex Parris. And then you say, who's paying for this? And then you put Rex Parris's finances up and make the question, thinking that it can protect you if you make a question that says, well, who's paying for it? Look who's having all the money. Are you making an accusation that any of those candidates, including Mr. Parris, is behind any of those mailers in any fashion?
No, I presented the information as, here's readily available information for a voter. Here's conclusions they may come to. My motion was to put public information in a more readily available format so that the information is available, and I'll quote you, Mr. Smith, from the previous meeting, we'll let the citizens decide.
Absolutely. There was a connection there. Might be a coy way of saying, well, I just posed the question to them. The difference is that, as the city attorney said, these particular mailers are under the FPPC. I think that if we give the city attorney direction, yes, I agree with that. Find out if they can be under the onus of our municipal filing periods. If they have to do pre-election filings, if they have to do those things, the 24-hour filings. I think that's a perfectly legit thing, okay? But let me go back to our minutes, and that we gave direction and we're already doing it. That was your motion, okay? That's something that we've already handled, and that's something that we've already done. Now, you made the connection with Mr. Parris because of the MSI, and coyly said, well, you decide. Here's the facts. Here's his mailer, here's the MSI, here's all his money. Who's paying for it? Wink, wink. Here's a mailer with Jim Jeffron, Frank Roberts, and Annie Visacki. The mail house is MSI. If you had this with your presentation, would you maybe be connecting the dots with Councilman Jeffra, the previous Mayor Frank Roberts, and Andy Visacki also? You make the connection because Bob Wilson connected that a Republican group used a mailbox at a mailbox house, and then you use Mr. Parris's mailbox at the same mailbox house. Now, I'm thinking where that place is on L, and it's pretty close to Mr. Parris's new office. Are you saying now that the 500 people who have mailboxes there, or however many it is at a mailbox place, might also be involved in these hit mailers? It has been apparent in the newspaper and your public speaking of what candidates you support in this campaign. It's obvious by whose names you put up there to disparage whose candidates you don't support. But for the lack of any reasonable nexus between your motion and your presentation, it is obvious 2 weeks before an election that this is campaigning. Let me read you another ethics thing here that maybe you might not have read before. This is from the Attorney General of the state of California. And it states, the term public funds is not limited to money, but includes anything of value belonging to the public agency, such as equipment, supplies, compensated staff time, and use of telephones, computers, and fax machines. The illegal use of public funds includes campaigning. I think I saw that your PowerPoint came off a city computer. I'm sure if we ask staff, like every council meeting when IT person comes in here, there was staff time paid to put that campaign on the city computer. We have staff sitting here so you can do your campaigning from the dais, supporting the three candidates that you want and disparaging the three candidates that you're opposing. I am requesting that the city attorney call the Attorney General's office to see if this violates Section 8314 of the Government Code, which is a violation of misuse of public funds for campaign purposes. I support your motion, and I think that we should get as much information on the website as possible. Put the 700s up tomorrow. I think if you ask Ms. Bryant, she'll say that that's an easy thing to do. But this kind of stuff that goes on continually, 2 weeks before an election, is campaigning, and that's what it is.
Okay. Let me just make a quick statement. Every single flyer that's come to my house, I've torn up and thrown away, or my wife has torn it up and thrown it away because I told her this was a bunch of nonsense. I've been on this council for 12 years. I sent out one mailer. One. I researched it. I found the guy to be dirty, and I sent it out with my name on it. Period. If you haven't got the guts to send a mailer out with your damn name on it, you're a coward. That's the way it is. If you want to go after people and you've got the goods on them, sign your name to the damn thing. Put it out there. I have no problem doing it, and I did it. I have no problem with it. Even though the consultant said, don't do that. Don't do that, Baron, you can't. I said, put it where the sun don't shine, pal. It's going out like I said it's going out, or it's not going out at all. And he got the message. And so did the voters, because it was the truth. Everything on that piece of paper was the truth. And it was verified. And that's what I'm getting at. This is all of this fancy paper going out there. These mailers are $10,000 a pop. I feel the texture of the paper. This isn't cheap stuff, folks. This is heavy-duty stuff. But if you can't put your name on it, then you got no business sending it. You just have no business sending it. And that's why politics sucks. And I'm glad I'm done with it. I'm glad I'm finished with it, because I've got no more time and no more temper to put up with that garbage. There are ways to find out who is in a corporation, folks. I belong to an investigative organization that does that. So there are ways. You can certainly find out. Okay? Are we ready to do this thing? Because I have got to get on the roadway.
No, I'm going to make a statement unless there's somebody else need to make a statement.
Before we vote, I'd like to just be clear on the motion again one more time.
Okay.
The motion to put the FPPC-related financial information, 460s, 470s, 700s, on the city website in a timely manner for elected officials, candidates, and appointees of the council, meaning planning commissioners.
And then direction to staff, I think you added to the motion, direction to staff to look into see if there can be anything that's done on reporting on a municipality for state general fund purposes and also LA County.
For independent, correct, for independent committees.
It's fine.
All right.
And that's the motion I seconded.
Yeah, you ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
Well, you got a comment?
Well, my comment is going to be what it is no matter which way we vote. I just want to say that I said earlier tonight that I really appreciate the citizens of this community allowing me to serve for 18 years. 18 years coming up in April. And I'm thankful and can make a clear statement that not one time, not once, did I ever support any kind of hit mailer on my behalf. I've gotten a few against me. But my philosophy has always been and will continue to be, I have a mission, and my mission is to stay right on that mission and let everybody else do whatever they like to do. Because if I'm supposed to be here, I'll be here. If I'm not supposed to be here, I won't. And so I just deplore this. I had hoped that my meeting tonight would have been a much easier and simpler meeting, because this is actually my last full meeting. The next meeting on the 22nd of April will be kind of a ceremonial type of a meeting. But I'm blown away at all of this. This doesn't make any sense. I don't think that an office is worth that. Now, that's my own feeling. I think the city of Lancaster, where I've lived in and about for almost 43 years, is very precious to me. And I really don't like for anybody to say anything. In fact, I was at the fairground and somebody said something about it, and I took it up with a gentleman. He's about 7 foot tall. And I just said, I hope you don't beat me up, but I want to know what you mean by that. And when we got through, he was comfortable in saying that, yes, we do have a good city. So we do have a good city. There are good people here, good counsel, but we've just gotten confused over some stuff, and that is not good. My whole life has been a life of service. 8 years that the governors appointed me to the Lahontan Regional Water Quality Control Board, and 18 years here. And I feel glad to do that. But I've never, ever done anything to hurt anybody if I knew it. Well, that's as far as I want to go with that, and we're ready to vote. It is unanimous and so ordered. And we'll go on then to the city manager, executive director's announcement.
No, sir.
City clerk, do we have any more cards? We do have some more cards.
Yes, sir. This is the time for citizens to speak on items that are not on the agenda, and you will find speaker cards at the back of the room. This is the time to fill those out. Fill the card out, bring it to the front. Your state law prohibits the council from taking any action on the items that are not on the agenda. Your matter will be referred to the city manager. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Again, when you come to the podium, you'll see 2 lights, a yellow light when you have 30 seconds left, and a red light when your time is up. We do ask that you be respectful of the time to allow other people to have their 3 minutes as well.
And how many cards do we have?
We have 12 cards.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Jim Tolan, followed by Ray Chavera.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I live in Friendly Village, and I'm not going to talk about muffins. However, I am going to talk about the resistance, please, to do not accept a conversion from mobile homes to condominiums. It would absolutely destroy Friendly Village with 464 mobile homes. Our companion company here is Hacienda. That might not be so difficult, but if I remember the California Civil Code, it says something about they would have to pay for our relocation if we became a condominium park instead of a mobile home park. And there are many, many people who cannot afford that cost. I happen to be retired, so as a consequence, I can afford a little bit, but not many of my neighbors can. So we'd like to urge you to resist any conversion from mobile homes to condominiums. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, and audience, you have before you copies of a major item adopted by Ventura County last week with respect to dealing with sham conversions of mobile home parks on a retail basis by park owners who wish to get somebody to wish to buy their land and thereby eliminate rent control for the rest of the residents of that particular park. The Ventura ordinance before you deals with properly regulating that so that the county will not be sued, hopefully, but that there will be due process with respect to the subdivision of mobile home parks in an attempt to subvert rent control, which you have had for over 20 years. Ventura also has had it for over 20 years. In recent times, you have, and I want to thank you again, you have supported various aspects of the whole conversion picture. This one is what I would call retail conversion, where a park owner, sometimes not agreed, or seeking to increase his profit sincerely, wishes to get around your rent control ordinance, find somebody who's willing to buy the property, probably can, and thereby everybody else will lose rent control. At a time when affordable housing is at a premium, at a time when you need your 15% set aside for this, at a time when you have 28 mobile home parks, more than Palmdale, and who knows what else is happening to the parks besides the demographic changes that have been occurring. I would hope that you, Mr. Mayor, as the appointed non-paid ombudsman for seniors in the city after next month, you will join us. You will join us in this crusade. For the purposes of public disclosure, I spoke with you earlier before this meeting.
Yes, you did.
Gave you a copy of this. We know the process is slow. We will hope you direct staff, and eventually it'll come up before the Planning Commission. I'm happy that you have, on the April 21st meeting of the Planning Commission, the much-awaited senior park ordinance that will keep us senior parks, the 3 remaining parks that you have in Lancaster. We wish to participate in the revitalization of Lancaster. We know we have to do our part. We think this Ventura ordinance, properly copied, will do that. I would hope that our sister city down below will copy it, and I'm sure, again, God willing, that we'll have other ordinances to present to you along these same lines. Before I finish my 3 minutes, Proposition 98 on the June 3rd ballot will totally phase out rent control. So while we fight the small battle here, the big one comes up June 3rd. Prop 98, no. Prop 99, yes. I'm happy to note that the League of California Cities, the County Supervisors Organization, the School Board Association, and the Water Districts of California endorse Prop 99 and fight 98. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I don't know who else is going to be. Anybody else going to be speaking on? Anyone else going to be speaking about the park, the mobile home park? Hands? No. Well, if not, I feel a little rough putting this on somebody else because I won't be here to do it, but I really think that this is a good thing to do, and I'd like to be able to give this to staff to take a look at and see what we can do. If I'm understanding that correctly, that one person can turn the whole park into, can send it down to 2. I don't think that's fair. And one of the reasons, because now I'm a senior citizen too. So I'd like to give this to staff, if I could.
Yes.
And okay. Thank you. Next speaker.
Kathy Elkins, followed by David Paul.
Good evening, council members and mayor.
Good morning.
My
Good
name
afternoon.
is Kathy Elkins, and I just wanted to come tonight, to talk for a few minutes about a couple of issues that I have. I don't live in the city limits of Lancaster. I live on the outskirts, and I wanted to talk about the AVTA, Antelope Valley Transit Authority, and I feel that our transportation system up here is very dysfunctional, and it hurts a lot of people who live out in Quartz Hill and the west side of Lancaster to come all the way out to town, and they have to wait an hour for a bus ride. And the last bus that leaves from Lancaster City Park at 7:45. So as a person like myself, I can't come to these meetings because I either have to pay somebody to give me a ride home or I have to walk 2 miles from the college. like I do now. So I just think it's wrong that the city is heading in the direction that it has been. And we need to look at the future. And we need to look at our transportation system up here, because it employs people, it gets people to where they need to go quicker, and it makes our city more functional. And that's the way we need to look at this. We need to look at this as the whole picture. Palmdale, for example, they have a system that's a little better than we do up here. And, for example, the park, okay, Lancaster City Park is a filthy, disgusting park. I don't like going over there. For one thing, they got gangbangers hanging out there after school. You got people doing all kinds of things out there while they're waiting for a bus. Why doesn't the city enforce a non-smoking rule just like the way the city of Palmdale does? Why doesn't the city of Lancaster enforce its own laws just like the city of Palmdale has done? We need to have the same kind of standards. And, you know, we can't do this to our own people. You need to be strict, and you need to be precise on how you want to be strict. Okay? All right. If you want to have a non-smoking park, you make a park where a part of it would be for smokers, and that would be the place where they go smoke.
Mrs. Alden,
I think the park is a dirty park, and it really needs to be cleaned up.
we appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
David Paul, followed by Faith Celebron.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thanks again. Mr. Mayor, I got to agree with you. Tonight did not turn out the way I hoped it would. I hoped there'd be a little more excitement in the room, and I want to thank you for your service, and Councilman Jeffer, who's left as well. We haven't always agreed, but I know your heart, I know it's good, and I know your life has been service, and I appreciate that. One of the hardest things to do is to convey to people the understanding of the charter system, city system of government. I've been going around, and I've recently found an ally in George Runner, who originally asked, as the mayor of this city, that the city attorney put a program together to look into the process. There are incredible cost savings in the bidding of contracts and all the things that are going to impact us in the future, and it is simply the future. But the hardest thing, I think, to understand is the relationship between the strong mayor system and the city manager, and I would like to explain that for 1 second if I could. Years ago, I had a job. I was called by a friend of mine in Chicago. He had got the job as a chief of security in a 50-story high-rise. It was a startup, and he hired me as assistant chief to put the program together, hire and train the staff, and my call letter was S1 Security 1. I went around and I basically ran the place. And in the mayor-council system of government, the chief administrative officer would be the person who assists the mayor. He would have the responsibility of running the city, and when you walk through the halls, not only would they say that's the guy that really runs the city, they would say that that's the guy that makes the mayor look good. So there is no attempt to take power away from a city manager. It is just an attempt to move to the future, and the mayor has to be the chief executive and the ambassador of the city to go out and attract the business and make the fights we need in the future. That is my firm belief. But, Mr. Bosigian, I would like you to know, as the editorial board for the newspaper, I gave such an impassioned defense of your role in the city's future that I stunned a local orator who had to follow me next into silence for a minute. And that happened in front of Dennis Anderson and Bob Wilson and all the other mayoral candidates that we have. So I want you to know I, no matter what happens, include you in a main role in the future of our city. Okay, sir? Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Faith Celebron, followed by Chris Cole.
I'm back.
The name again.
I was here, my name's Faith Celebron. I was here about a year ago I'm sad Mr. Jeffress left because at that meeting, he stated that he visited my house and I should be deemed a public nuisance. I built an RV garage. If you all recall, you were all here that night. And I have gotten citation after citation. A neighbor has used the system to harass me. Well, it's been wintertime, raining. It's been quiet. Well, I got this in the mail stating that I'm running a business out of my industrial garage, which I'm not. My husband has a hobby of classic cars. I have a pink slip for every car in that garage. I've raised my kids up in the Lord. My kids go to Desert Christian. My daughter was one of the ones honored here today. And I turn the other cheek. I've been turning the other cheek for 2 years. LaSalle sat here and said he would call the sheriffs and have him handle it. The next day they came to my house, wrote my husband a ticket, an infraction, which later, 2 weeks later, was made a misdemeanor where he went to court. The judge told him to get a lawyer. He's looking at jail time. It went all the way to the point where he had to represent himself. The DA sat down with him and asked the court to dismiss it because he had a radio on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday. It's just becoming utterly ridiculous that this neighbor can do this to me, and I have no recourse. There's nothing I can do. We have taken money out of our savings for when we are senior citizens to perhaps buy another house. I cannot sell the house I'm in now because of the way the market is. But when I do leave, the garage is still there, and somebody who goes into that house is going to be somebody who wants that garage, probably for the same reasons my husband uses the garage. And so now I have this saying to cease it immediately, any auto repair and any body work that he is doing on the premises. We are not running a business. Inspector Katz came forward and came to my house, threatened me with search warrants. I let him in. He went into the garage. He questioned me about the cars. I showed him pink slips. He took pictures of our personal property, and then he did state that he did not believe we were running a business in there. I don't know where to turn from this point. Mr. Branch is no longer here, I see, and it was his first night here the day that I came here, and he tried to help me. I paid citation after citation after citation for no grass, even though I showed that I had put grass in with my sod receipts and my workers' receipts. I didn't get that money back, and I can't start this again. I can't do this again. I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to do.
To you. So you're saying it has not been resolved?
It has not. This came in the mail on Saturday. It continues, and it continues. The police came to my house 18 times within a 2-month period. And if the police aren't there, on the weekend it's the police. During the week it's the city of Lancaster. I've come home and had 4 tags on my door from the dog pound. It is a constant. I have had rocks thrown through my car windows. I've had my house egged. It's out of control.
Okay.
And I can't sell my house. The market is terrible.
3 minutes, but Mr. Berziga, did you have any comment?
We've obviously dealt with this situation before, and we'll talk to Mrs. Celebron or Ms. Celebron and see what we can do. We can
I
deal with
don't know
it.
where to go. I don't want to hire a lawyer. I've been avoiding that. But it's been 2 years I've been living with this.
I'm sorry. Will you, someone of the staff, talk to her tonight, if you would, please? Okay.
Thank you.
Chris Cole, followed by Dina Kendrick.
Hi, council members and mayor. I saw you earlier today at my ribbon cutting for a new business.
Oh, okay.
And you invited us to come to the meeting. And we are not residents of Lancaster, but we feel like we are because we're at our business, our new business, almost constantly just trying to get it going. But we do have an environmentally friendly business that we'd like to share with the people that are still here. I know a lot of people have gone home, but we recycle cartridges for printers. And we know that almost everybody here probably has that. And we also have fundraising for the schools. There's a lot of private schools and public schools that we'd like to approach on fundraising by recycling cartridges from their parents, from their homes, from wherever they can, and we will pay for the cartridges to help them get supplies for the schools. We know budgets are cut really low right now, so and our purpose of being here is just to introduce ourselves and let people know that we're here and show our appreciation for letting us do business in your city. So, thank you very much.
Very good. I was at the ribbon cutting today, as she's already mentioned to you, and when I found out that they really have a business that is a business not only just to make money, but also environmentally safe. And says, if you'd like to meet tonight, come up to the meeting and pick up a card and talk 3 minutes about your business. Have no problem with it. And thank you so much for that, both of you. Next speaker.
Dina Kendrick, followed by David Aber.
Good evening. As she said, my name is Dina Kendrick. I have owned a fourplex in the 44600 block of Dade Avenue since 1996. My property is maintained and in good condition. It is far from an eyesore in the community. I also have great tenants, 3 seniors and 1 young couple. In 2004, the City of Lancaster implemented a business licensing program, whereas rental property owners were assessed an annual fee for doing what is said to be business in the city. This fee was somewhere in the area of $50 for the first unit and $25 for each additional unit. In my perspective, the selling point of this licensing program was the proposed usage of the money collected, which was to be for police service. It was stated that rental properties generate an enormous amount of police calls for service. In the 12 years that I have owned my property, the police have been there once. I understand the need for police presence in the area, and despite not living in the city of Lancaster, I still want it to be safe. My tenants and the society as a whole is my concern. Because of this, I did not hesitate to pay the licensing fee, even though I felt the annual property taxes that I paid cover the response of emergency services. In 2006, I was assessed a $575 late fee, for which I did not find out about until 2007. I have yet to pay this fee. In 2007, the council got together and revised this law, making it more reasonable and more affordable. The licensing fee changed to a flat rate of $26 and the late fees to 20% the first 30 days and 10% each month after, not to exceed 50% of the licensing fee. In other words, the late fee is now $13, not the $575 that I was assessed. Now that's fair and makes total sense. However, I am still being held accountable for the ridiculous amount of $575. In April of 2007, I wrote a letter to Monique Edwards pleading for a one-time fee waiver, which was denied. I accept full responsibility for being late. However, I am also advocating for fairness dealing with an unfair situation. I even asked to be allowed to pay half of the penalty, which again I was told no. To be charged a late fee of $575 is penalizing me close to 500 times the cost of the license. The shiestiest credit companies in the world don't even charge such fees, and here I am dealing with a city entity which refuses to see the highway robbery of good people such as myself that is taking place. I am forever grateful to the council for changing the law, but just like that, like they stumbled and was allowed to correct themselves and stand tall again, please allow me to do the same. I ask that you look into the situation and give me some feedback. I truly hope that the position is not that some people have paid, therefore you must continue to collect this debt instead of acknowledging its wrongfulness. I ask that if someone has taken this position, please consider doing the right thing, which is reimbursing those citizens that paid this ridiculous amount. Just because something can be done and gotten away with doesn't make it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Comment, Jim? Okay. Somebody will talk to her? Okay, thank you.
David Aber, followed by Dixie Iliopoulos.
Good evening, Council. It's good this will be the last time I'll have to look at this council and suffer the decisions it's made the past 2 years, allowing us to be drugged through the mud. Obviously, all the citizens are listening. They come up here and they tell you time and time and time again, how come someone gets up and talks about a topic, and then we get up and voice our opinion, you guys don't even discuss it, and then you vote, the wrong way, not in the best interest of the citizens, and burn up our tax dollars, by running Bob LaSalle out of town. $1 million that costs us, that's tax dollars. But the beauty is that we get 3 minutes to come up here and stand. And I know that the last mayor never ever cut me off. I can remember a meeting where the two cities got together and I got cut off, and that's wrong. When it's okay when somebody up there gets applause, but you don't want us to applaud one another. We're tired of what's happened to us as citizens. I commend you, Mr. Hearns, for stepping down and getting out of the way. we're going to get a mayor here soon that's going to lead us into the future. Mr. Vasaki, I don't understand why you're running, because we're going to recall you again if, in fact, you survive the election. Mr. Smith, you talk about addresses.
You know, Mr. Abbott, you've already talked about all these issues.
Pardon?
You've already talked about these issues in 2 or 3 other times
This is my
tonight.
3 minutes to talk about anything I want to talk about, Mr.
If
Hearns.
you've already talked about it.
So we're not going to waste it by, you can comment after I'm done with my 3 minutes. Thank you. I don't like coming here and listening to Mr. Smith attack Mr. Cilio about addresses. Avenue L, the address connected directly to you, is a far cry from Rex's office on 10th Street. It's probably about 2 miles away, and you have disrupted this entire council. We've asked you to resign. There's the curtain. Why don't you proceed out the back and, release the taxpayers of the burden of the decisions that you make that continue to, keep us oppressed as people. People can't even go vote or recall you without you trying to pull strings, making calls here and
Mr.
there.
McHugh,
And I'm sure when...
do we need to listen to this again?
He's got his 3 minutes, so.
I don't know how much time I got, Mr. Hearns. I commended you for stepping away, but this is exactly the problem. You will no longer be here to oppress the people in the freedom of this town, okay? I do have my 3 minutes. You've done this before, and we're all glad you're leaving. Trust me.
Dixie Iliopoulos? No? Alan Califf, followed by Darlene Peterson.
Mayor, City Council.
Yes, sir.
My issue tonight is the fact that last Friday there was a number of citizens, both from Palmdale and Lancaster, that went to Supervisor Antonivich's office with the intent to rally and possibly protest the county's intention and proposal to shove another facility down our throat out there by Mariloma and the state prison. They want to put in a county jail, which I'm sure every one of you have heard about. So who was there to represent us besides the few citizens of Palmdale and Lancaster? It was a Palmdale city councilman there. A Palmdale city councilman, but where were any one of you? I'm appalled, disgusted, and embarrassed by every one of you who are supposed to be spokesmen and representatives for our cause here in the city of Lancaster. Not one of you were there. Thank you.
You think we need to inform them what we have done? Would you hear this, sir, before you leave, if you don't mind? Okay, let me tell you what we did do. One.
You weren't there. You weren't there. KNBC was there. Local Time Warner Cable was there. Where were any one of you there? Where were you?
At work.
If you would allow me to say this, if not, I'll just pass it up. But
You take some time off, Andy. Believe me.
okay, sir. If you don't want to hear it, then that's okay. Okay. I wanted to make mention to him that last week I met with the warden, Mr. Hicklin, and a whole team of people to discuss this very issue. Today, and I'll let Mr. Bruzigan tell you all that we went through today, and letting everybody know that we totally do not support that move. Absolutely not. Even though I will not be on the council, I will be right here fighting with, side by side with the council, that is if they agree with me, and that is that we cannot afford to have another jail or prison. Mr. Bruzigan, this has happened this past week, what we've done.
Palmdale City Councilman was there.
Listen up.
As the mayor said, there was a briefing with the sheriff's department, and the county came up and briefed the council and staff on this proposal. In the strongest terms, we all expressed what the mayor said. This is not something that any one of the council members said they would support. Staff absolutely does not support it, would recommend against it. We requested that the county and the sheriff's department delay the action on the board We requested that the county and the sheriff's department come up here and hold a community meeting so the citizens can speak on this issue and be heard, and we will provide a facility for that. I could spend 45 minutes on the reasons why, but I'd be preaching to the choir, and maybe some of the other council might comment under council comments, but I think the city leadership and the community have spoken, and I think they will continue to speak.
And in addition to that, it was on the agenda to go before the Board of Supervisors, and we got it pulled off. I made a personal phone call. We got it pulled off. So we're on board. Okay, any one of you want to say anything?
I can echo one thing that Mr. Bozigian said, is that Sheriff's Department and county did commit to having a meeting, a community meeting, so that not just a protest, but so that as many citizens as we can pack, they can see firsthand how people feel about adding another correctional facility to the Antelope Valley, and specifically the city of Lancaster. The city of Lancaster has done more than our fair share in terms of the number of prisons and jails and you name it. We've done more than our fair share. I think that when that community meeting comes up, we all need to be there, because it's not just the sheriff that needs to see it, because he's just trying to build beds to put inmates in. I don't fault him for that. I fault him for where he wants to put it. But it's not just the sheriff's department that's pushing it. It is the county of Los Angeles. It's the CAO's office. That's the one who needs to hear the message loud and clear. And when he shows up here, we need to be there.
We will. Anybody else? Okay. Okay. Have any more cards?
Darlene Peterson, followed by Joseph Vara. Okay, Joseph Vara.
Council?
Yes, sir.
As an American with an Italian background, the levity in this theater here about my background is not reasonable and should not be in these meetings. I'm very sensitive about my heritage, and I don't like people mocking it. And that people who put these hit mailers out has insulted me and my family, personally. And I do not want this council, I do want this council to find out who is behind these mailers and prosecute them, because I can't. For the open procedures, or prejudice, against the bodies of Italians with surnames. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next card.
Jason Smith.
Gentlemen, the guys on the left of me have taken a bit of a drubbing tonight. Some deserved, some not. I, for one, am sorry to see Mayor Hearns stepping down.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Hearns has actually been a very good mayor. And for those of you who don't agree, based on one decision, I would point out the myriad of other decisions that Mr. Hearns has made, along with the other members of our council, that have been to the benefit of the city of Lancaster. Although I too miss Bob LaSala, with no offense intended whatsoever towards Mark Bozigian, I think he's going to be a fine city manager. I look forward to seeing the progress that will be made. None of the things that Bob LaSala wanted to put into place would have come about had it not been for the city council voting on it and approving it. Not one. Now, I disagree with certain decisions that have been made, but on the whole, the decisions that have been made by this council have been towards the benefit of the city of Lancaster. And I say this after having come into council meetings for the last 3 years, not just when there's a hot button issue. And I don't speak at every meeting. I am particularly happy that Mr. Visacki has chosen to run again. I support Mr. Visacki in this run. Just because of one little vote does not mean that you should throw out all of the excellent work that has been done by this council. Mr. Cilio, I look forward to seeing you to continue to keep this council in line, as you and unfortunately the departing Mr. Jeffrey have done, and Mr. Smith has done that too. Gentlemen, you've been through some serious drubbing this evening. That's the game of politics. It's my favorite full contact sport. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. That was good. Appreciate that. That was clever. Thank you. Any
That
other-
concludes our speakers.
All right. That concludes. Okay, city council comments? Mr. Smith, anything else?
This isn't considered our last official meeting, right?
No.
One last one.
No, we have another meeting on the 22nd.
Okay, so we can make comments at that time? Yes. Thank you.
My only comments are going to be on the jail facility, which I've already made. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go ahead and make this statement that, again, to those of you who are still here with us tonight, and to all of the staff, doggone it. It's been a few rough places, but I have certainly enjoyed it, and next week I will share some of the things that I have had a part in. But I've learned that the only way you get anything done is you got to count to three. You can't count to three, you can't get there. And I just appreciate the opportunity to serve. I'm a servant at heart. That's what I like doing.
You still have 4 weeks left.
I still got 4 weeks left. That's right.
Not 1 week.
Not 1 week. You have 4 weeks left.
It's not over till the next election is certified.
That's good. Okay, and there is no closed session. Is there anything else from a... Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have in my hand a certificate. I have in my hand a certificate of adjournment that on March 25th, which is today, the regular scheduled meeting of the Lancaster City Council adjourned in tribute and in remembrance to the memory of Stephen C.
Kukurick.
Kukurick.
Stephen Kukurick.
Okay. That's the one right there. Okay. And so all of us have signed it, and I'm understanding that that will be mailed out to the family. So long time photographer, been here in the area a long time, and probably some of you remember him. But we do thank God for people like that. With that in mind, our next meeting will be on the 22nd of April, one day before my birthday. I don't know where I want to put that out there. But anyway, we adjourn. Thank you.